All right, very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, from the flight deck once again. It's Captain Naps with you. Cancel checklist. FS2 crew. Let's try that again. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the flight deck with Captain Naps, and welcome to another edition of A Pilot's Life live on Twitch. We are ready to do another flight today. We're doing a flight today from where are we going today? Today we're in LAX, in case you couldn't tell by looking out the window here, because it's a pretty distinctive landmark there, that lounge restaurant there in the background. And we are heading up to Portland, KPDX Portland. So we've been there already on this this season. There was a little bit of repetition, maybe not repetition completely, but a couple of repeat airports anyways. Not repeated flight routes, but repeat airports in this season this year. So it is what it is. It took me a while to find a route or a season that I liked that had a variety of different destinations without having too many places that were too far away as well. Like this is the one thing, is that I gotta keep this stream length somewhat reasonable. So, you know, a 600, 700, 800 mile leg is okay. When you start to get up into the thousands, though, it starts to become a long stream very quickly. And I can talk, but I can only talk for so long before my voice starts to die. So I'm kind of a little bit worried about our last leg of this season here. So today, obviously, Los Angeles, Portland. After that, we have 2 more legs left. We go Portland down to San Francisco, and San Francisco all the way to New York JFK. And I've done this similar legs before. You know, you're crossing the whole bloody country. This is a 4 to 5 hour stream. This is an epic stream, 2,200 miles. I don't know what I'm going to find to talk about in that time. I am seriously thinking about maybe getting a guest host or at least some kind of a guest on the stream, just to give me a chance to stop talking for a little while. Because by the end of about 3 hours, my voice runs out of ability to keep on talking. And, you know, so looking at a flight, potentially a 4.5, 5 hour flight, it's a long time for me to be talking. So if I have somebody else to help do some of the talking, that could be very beneficial. And of course, there goes my coffee spilled. Of course. Because hopefully that's going to be the worst thing that happens this morning. Because the coaster stuck to my coffee, and then when it let go, it knocked my coffee cup off balance here. Of course. Don't want to waste the precious, precious coffee. It's fuel for a pilot here. Keeps us going all day. Anywho, so that's what we got on tap today. What else have we got here? In a pilot's life, we've got all sorts of stuff kind of happening here. We've got a couple of salary paychecks in there. So if you look down towards the bottom of the screen there, you can see my current bank account in the bottom left. There's $3,600. So I've made a decent amount of money. I've made a couple $100 in this career, and with my current salary of $31 an hour, even every 3 hour, 4 hour flights, $100. It's not much, but it's adding up slowly, and that's going to allow me to, in the future, purchase some additional type ratings if I need to. So I believe I currently have the, let's see here in the shop, I believe I do have the 320, the 37, the 320, the 37, and the CRJ family type ratings. And that's good enough for now, really, at the end of the day. The kind of aircraft that I want to fly, and the kind of aircraft that are also available in Microsoft Flight Simulator, that's going to be good enough for now. The 310 might be something worth considering, just because that default 310 is pretty good if I find anybody that still operates it. There weren't a whole lot of operators left of that aircraft. And actually, I can click on it here and see who still operates it in a pilot's life here, and there's the list. Not a whole lot. Aero Union, Air Hong Kong, Ariana, Afghan Airlines, Avianca Cargo, European Air Transport, FedEx, Iran Air Tours, Mahan, MNG Airlines, Keshem Airlines, Royal Jordanian, Turkish Airlines, UPS Airlines. The one that kind of was more popular recently was Transat used to operate them, but even Transat's gotten rid of them. So really, it's a freight aircraft now. So not much point to me in purchasing this one for simulating the pilot's life here. So there's really not a whole lot. The other one that might be worthwhile soon is the 330, because Airsoft's going to release their 330 before too long. So there are a handful, but nothing that's really kind of coming up quickly. The other one, of course, maybe the ERJ once we get, not the ERJ, the E-Jet, sorry. Once we get that, that Flight Sim Studios Embraer up to a good level, it might be worth purchasing that and doing a season or 2 in that airplane, because I do like that airplane. It's a good airplane. But anyways, yeah, so I don't have a whole lot to spend my money on there, so I could also spend my money on some other stuff like bank deposits and training, situational awareness gives me extra experience points, which builds up my ranks faster. So there are a few things I could spend my money on as I earn my money here. But you do have to work quite a while to earn some money, which is great. Which is it forces you to really kind of fly a schedule, fly it well, get paid a lot, get a good job. All those things kind of come together, and then you get rewarded at the end of the day. So, anywho, that's what we're up against here. So let's go ahead and hop into the flight deck of our 737. So right now it is nighttime in Los Angeles, and the sun will be coming up soon here. I think I'll leave it in real time. I don't really see the sun coming up too quickly here. It's kind of gray and cloudy here, but we'll leave it in real time for now. If it really is still kind of dark when we get going, I might turn the clock ahead by 3 hours. But I kind of like it right now. It's actually just overcast. If you look, there's a little hole in the overcast there, and it's actually not bad above the overcast. So I think we'll get going and we'll get up to the sunny skies above. So that's going to be our plan for the day. Let's hop in this flight deck and let's start setting up, shall we? All right. And let's see if I can remember the key combination for my flashlight. Haha, there it is. All right, so get the battery on here in our 3.7, and we do have ground power available. Go ahead and put that on. I'm just going to make sure I do have. I don't know why those are in the continuous position. Those should not be in the continuous position. We do have the position lights on. And what we can also do, of course, at this point is get the dome light on so we can see what we're doing, and we can also kill the flashlight. All right, emergency exit lights on, and where's that panel brightness as well? Let's get some backlighting on this panel. And the other thing we're going to need to do is, of course, start looking at calling for fuel and services. So.
Refueling truck is on its way.
Refueling truck is on its way. Thanks, GSX.
Please
all
don't
right.
load aircraft until
now that we got some
fuel
electrical
truck
power
arrives
established,
and
the other thing I'm
asks
going
to
to do is
do
get the IRSs on to nav. Let's start setting up.
Roger.
That'll start him down his whole path of doing stuff. And we'll do our stuff as well here. So we'll make sure we check all the safety equipment in the aircraft before we get going here. Fire extinguisher, crash axe, PBE, escape ropes, flashlights, all that stuff that we need to have, oxygen masks, make sure that it's all in here. We'll also check the logbook, of course, at this point. And we would have in the flight planning room how to look at the flight plan, or nowadays we don't really look at stuff in the flight planning room. That's a bit of an antiquated notion because pretty much everything comes down on a tablet these days. So pretty much most airlines issue every pilot a tablet, and you can download your flight plans directly on there, which negates the need to visit the flight planning room to print out your flight plan anymore. Now for longer legs, people will print out flight plans, part of the logic being that it's easier to do tracking when you've got multiple crew members, 3-4 crew members, taking turns doing nap time. You want to make sure there's one master flight plan that everyone's keeping track of that has all your waypoint checks, time checks, fuel checks, all those things on it. And it's harder to do when everybody's got their own flight plan in the digital realm. So often the longer haul ones will print out a flight plan still, but the short hauls, very rarely will you see too many airlines printing out flight plans anymore. Pretty much everyone is working in the digital realm. So this is what we're doing today. Alaska 1460, 20th of March, LAX to Portland. We check a bunch of stuff when we first sit down, make sure the flight number is correct, the type of aircraft is correct, make sure we're in the correct fin too, because it would be the first time that someone towed the wrong airplane to the wrong gate and somebody tried to start up a flight on the wrong airplane that wasn't scheduled to do that flight for one. And maybe it may not make a difference, maybe it may not, maybe there might be some defects on that airplane, but when they assign an aircraft to a flight, that's the plane you got to fly. Now, if someone parks in the wrong place and you go get in it and don't realize it's the wrong airplane, I've gotten halfway through the setup process before we realized that somebody had brought us the wrong airplane. Not an impossible thing to do in this crazy, complicated world we have. All right, have a look at the cost index. Yes, ground air and air distance, so 800 miles direct, 880 as we're going to fly it. That sounds pretty reasonable. Average wind 275.73. No dispatch remarks. have a look at the fuel. So we've got some additional fuel today, 40 minutes of extra fuel, and the reason for that is that the weather's not great. I looked at it already in Portland. It's going to be good. It's going to be okay, and also our alternate's not great either. So we actually have 2 alternates today. Seattle's not supposed to be terribly good. That was the first one offered. If we are there on time and the weather improves on time, it should be okay, but the weather's not great now. So I kind of was a little bit skeptical about that. So I added a second alternate of Eugene, Oregon. So we've got some additional information here. It takes pretty much the same amount of fuel to go that way. So it doesn't matter which one we kind of pick, we just have to pick one of them. But if the weather's not improving in Seattle, which is the bigger airport, is the better hub with the better connections, at least we have a technical alternate Eugene we can go to, we can refuel there and go on. And I did have a look at as well at the sim brief flight plan here. So there is a more direct route. However, as I was looking at it here, not that significant weather, but as I was looking at the radar picture here, there's a decent amount of weather kind of on the direct route. So actually going west and maybe
don't load aircraft until the fuel truck arrives.
going west actually might avoid some of the worst parts of this buildups here. So it looks like part of this is kind of just trying to avoid some weather. Looks like there's some weather in the Portland area as well. So we're going to have to turn off the significant weather if we still got it on. I thought we turned that off. There we go. Yeah. So we will have some adverse weather kind of in the Portland area, so we'll have to kind of keep an eye on that. And there are some worse stuff up to Seattle as well. So you see why Eugene becomes a better alternate. So sometimes just because it meets the legal requirements doesn't always make it a great alternate. Sometimes it helps to kind of look at the overall weather picture, look at the radar, look at the METARs and TAFs, and figure out what's the best alternate you can actually do. So that's what I did in this case, and I went with 2 alternates. Seattle's the better alternate in terms of facilities, connections, etc. But Eugene's a great one if Seattle is really kind of going to hell. Then we've got a second out. So you always want to make sure you have a very reasonable out. All right, so they asked us to fuel the airplane. So what did that flight plan that I was just looking at say?
Please use your airplane fuel system to set the desired fuel quantity.
It said 19.9, so we'll just round it up to 20,000 pounds of fuel. There we go, and let the GSX do that. And in the meantime, we'll just make sure this guy has done everything he needs to do. I heard him doing most of it there, so check the flight recorder, check the airspeed, check the stalls, and then we'll come back and do the rest of the overhead panel later. What we'll do is we'll get to the FMS really quickly here. And let me actually do it this way, where I just sort of pull it to one side so that you guys can see what I'm doing and follow along. So our target takeoff time is our target off gate time is 18 minutes from now. Can we do it? I think we can. I probably spent a little bit too much time talking there, talking about what I would actually have looked at in the flight planning room. So let's see if we can do it here. So I'll pull that up here, and then I will again, as always, and I realize I haven't done this. I haven't pulled myself up. There I am. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the stream. And as always, I'm going to grab my trusty tablet. If I can actually get my passcode in there properly. And pull up my AviaWorks server. And there we go. So now I've got my FMC, and I'm ready to go with my AviaWorks server. So it's just much easier. I find it's much easier to type. Plus, I also can still see the flight plan on the screen here while I'm typing into the FMS. If I click on the FMS, it'll bring the other screen to the fore. I won't be able to see the flight plan anymore. So anywho, quick look at this here. Ident model 737-700 with a 24,000 pound engine, AirAct 2302, 23rd of February to 23rd of March. So that's good for a couple more days. It'll have to be updated later this week. Position in it.
Hi, the security and safety check are all done. Are we good to start boarding?
Go for it.
Thanks.
In which case,
Boarding requested.
we will request boarding. All right, so we'll grab the left GPS there. Doesn't matter which one, since they're both indicating more or less the same, give or take 100 feet. They're about the same. And go back, previous page, set IRS position to match what the GPS is already initialized to. You could also use the last position, or even set up a reference airport and even a gate and load the position coordinates that way. But GPS in this day and age is just probably the easiest and most reliable and most accurate way of doing it. All right, so with that said, we can go to our route page. So today's route is KLAX Los Angeles to KPDX Portland. Nope. KPDX Portland. And the flight number is, I believe, 1460. Sure, you can board them all. It doesn't matter.
Pilot's boarding starting.
Yes, we are Alaska 1460 is our flight number. We don't have, I'm not going to send for the flight plan request. We're going to put it in the old-fashioned way. So, departure, arrival, departure from LAX, and I believe we're on the summer departure. Where's my, yeah, there it is, yeah, route, summer 2, scatter, so, I would expect for this departure, normally we'd have to taxi to 24 left, so we'll do that. We'll set up 24 left for now. I got no ATC, so I don't think anyone would care too much if I did a non-standard departure, but we'll do that. The summer 2, and then it's the scatter transition. There it is, scatter sector. Alright, and then on page 2 we can start putting in the rest of our waypoints. So from there it's direct S and S, I believe that's Salinas. Then direct Spencer and the Timbers 2. Very easy. Uh, 10 left is the expected approach based on the flight plan. I'll go with that. Timbers 2, 10 both. And what's the transition? Spencer. Spencer, there it is. Alright, so Timbers 2, Spencer, ILS 10 left. We can go ahead and have a look. And so we did direct Spencer, Spencer, Timbers 2, 10 both, trail, ILS 10 left. That all looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and activate that one, execute. And our flight plan is in. Performance initialization at 6 right there. And ZFW. So today we got 97 people expected, so the ZFW is expected to be 106.4. Planned block fuel is 20.3.
Your crew has boarded. Passengers boarding starting.
And actually, that 20.3 is actually the already loaded fuel, so that's fine. We'll go with that. Reserves today. Final reserve plus alternate, 47.48, so we'll call it 4.8. Cost index, 67. Cruise altitude of 380. Cruise wind of 275 at 73. And there we go. That's all set up. We can execute that performance plan. N1 limit. Let's go ahead and pull up my app on my phone here. Still don't have this what am I trying to say here? Still do not have the EFB yet in the PMDG. Waiting for it still. Alright, so first of all, before I forget, let's switch to Imperial. And just going to grab some current ATIS out of LAX, or at least current weather out of LAX. It's 5 miles, missed, few at 300, broken 800, overcast at 1,000, 13 degrees. So
I'm back. No issues on the walk around.
Thanks, buddy. Landing 24 left, full length, dry runway, winds 260 at 6, outside air temperature 13 degrees, and QNH 2991.
Roger.
This guy still listening to me. And the estimated takeoff weight here, and I just have to go back one page there on Perfinet. ZFW 106.4 plan, so the estimated takeoff weight's 126.7. Let's calculate that. Flap 5, sounds good. Wonder if we could even do it as like a flap 1. Yeah, we could do it even as a flap 1 apparently today. It's a pretty long runway here in Los Angeles. That'll get us good climb performance after takeoff, so let's do that. And 13 degrees, we won't need the engine anti-ice initially. Can I even do it with takeoff 2? So I can do a flap 1 takeoff with takeoff 2. Let's do that. So according to this, the numbers I can do here are, it's a takeoff 2 derate, temperature of 35, and then a flap 1 configuration gives me speeds of 141, 143, 150. And takeoff C of G, we'll just copy and paste in there 23.6. That looks good. And there we go. The other thing I'll do actually is we'll change the acceleration height Most airlines these days seem to be using 1,000 feet as a acceleration and thrust reduction height. So that's what I'm going to change it to: 1,000 foot acceleration thrust reduction. There we go. All right, with that, our FMS setup is done, and we can move on to the overhead flow. Let's just verify that the FO has done everything he's supposed to do here.
Here's the fuel slip.
Thanks.
Thanks, buddy.
Welcome. Have a nice flight.
Dampers on, melted flaps are off. All of our transfer switches are all centered normal. And actually, we can probably start that APU now. Assuming the fuel truck is gone. Is the fuel truck gone? He brought us a fuel slip. So one would assume he's gone. Yeah, he's gone. Alright, so starting the APU. Fuel truck's gone, so we can go ahead and get the seatbelts on. Test is passed. Now, one thing I'll have to look into and figure out is if this aircraft has a time limit after the APU start. In the bus, it's 3 minutes after APU start before you start on the APU bleeds and start running the packs off the APU. So it looks like the APU has started, the APU is available, so what we could do is we could just do some due diligence here and start the timer. If I can figure out where the timer is in the stupid clock here. Time, date, there we go, that's what I'm looking for. Give it 3 minutes and then we'll get that APU bleed on because it's probably getting a little cool in the cabin. Let's check here. Yeah, cabin's down into 55 degrees Fahrenheit. That's probably a little cool. So we will get some heat going here momentarily. Just as soon as we get everything, as soon as we get a little bit of time in the packs. And the whole point for that is just not to blow like, it's just to kind of clear out the ducts a little bit, clear out the APU system right after the start so you don't get oil residue, that sort of thing coming through the ducts. They found the first few minutes after start, you're often likely to get that oily, burnt oil smell coming through the ducts, but after 2 or 3 minutes, it tends to go away. So, all right. So let's have a quick look here. Let's pull up the charts. Let's start looking at the summer too and start setting up our guidance panel here. All right. So it's loading, loading, loading. Just open the chart. I don't need the overlay. Alright, so 128 feet is our field elevation. What's our altimeter again? 2991. Looks like this buddy has already set it for us. Good. That looks good. 24 left, heading 251 to 640. So 251 is set there. Good. Our takeoff speed V2 is 150 is what's set right now. And the top altitude on this is flight level 230. And there is no ATC online to give us a clearance or amend that top altitude, so we will go with 230 for now. Alright, we'll go through this in more depth in a minute. We just wanted to kind of set up the guidance panel with that. So we got flight directors are on. Won't arm the auto thrust yet, and we will arm LNAV and VNAV to follow the path. Alright, make sure that we got traffic on as well. Terrain would also be useful today because we're in Los Angeles. There's lots of bad terrain out there. Let's turn that down a little bit because it's a little hard to see there. Alright, quick look at the engine instruments. We do have lots of oil and system. We got lots of hydraulics. Good. Put that back on engine for the start. Should we reset that fuel burn? Alright, GPW switches are all normal. Our spoilers are stowed, flaps are up, speed brakes, speed brakes are up, and parking brakes on, cut off. Do a quick fire test here. Ah, this switch is so small, it's very hard to do it. Ah, stop doing that. Go that way. There we go. 22.8 for guard. We'd set company on number 2. And I'll set standard 2000 for the transponder. There we go. And the other thing we would have to do is test the aileron and rudder trim, left, right, make sure it moves, recenter it. I'm not going to do it right now just because it's a pain in the butt to recenter it because you can't look at the sensor and look at the switch at the same time. Just going to set this up as well so I don't forget what flight we are. It's 1460, but that should be a good enough reminder for me. All right. Pre-flight checklist.
Pre-flight checklist. Oxygen.
Tested 100%.
Tested 100%. Navigation transfer and display switches. Normal auto. Window heat. On. Pressurization mode selector. Auto. Flight instruments.
Altimeter 2991, heading 251.
Heading 252. Altimeter 2991. Park brake.
Set.
Engine start levers.
Cut off.
Pre-flight checklist complete.
Are you ready for the departure briefing?
Go ahead.
All right. So let's get this departure briefing out of the way here. Let's have a quick look and follow along in the box as we do it today. So we are in Los Angeles, parked over at gate 62 on Terminal 6. So it's a bit of a long taxi round for 24 left. We're going to probably go down Charlie, Kilo, and Echo to get to runway 24 left, or is otherwise assigned by ATC if any ATC decides to log in. Hopefully they don't log in right after we finish leaving. The departure today is the Summer 2 RNAV departure out of Los Angeles. So it is RNAV. We do have LNAV armed for this, 10-3 Tango. Radar required, RNAV 1. Scatter transitions, DDI or GPS required. Yeah, that's fine. Turbojets only. And is it before 0700 local? Because you're supposed to fly the Lady J between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. local. So it is now 10:987. So yeah, no, it is 7 a.m. Local time in Los Angeles. So that's fine. We can use this departure. 24 left. It's climb heading 251. Let's just pull this up on here. 251 to 640, and then climb direct to cross Delray, at or below 3,000. Yeah, that's 3,000 below in there. Then on track 256 to cross Any at or below 5,000. Any at or below 5,000. Then on track 253 to cross Nank. Then on track 253 to Nank. Then on track 253 to cross Dark at or below 12,000. So there it is. Delray, Any, Nank, Dark below 12,000. Then on track 260 to Summer. And then from there we go to Olaf, Ryzen, Tessie, and Scatter. So that's our whole departure there. Terrain around here, we do have terrain north of field. The MSA around Los Angeles 7,700, mostly due to the range of mountains to the north of the airport. So as long as we keep going straight ahead, we'll stay over the ocean. We should be safe to level off at pretty much almost any altitude. Once we start the turn northbound after Summer, we will have to just pay attention to the terrain. But if we haven't had an engine failure by that point, we'll probably be at a point where we can cross most of that terrain anyways. Weather today, it's a little bit overcast. We might need to get the anti-ice on after takeoff, but it's not necessary for the initial departure. 13 degrees at the surface. Should take us to at least 1,000 feet without having to put on the anti-ice. Weather, operational. No MELs in this aircraft. We've got a clean machine. No TAMs in the flight plan. Let's just have a real quick look here. And again, I should have done this in the flight planning room, but instead I was actually setting up the stream when I would normally have been setting up a flight plan. So Echo 14, taxi lane. Okay, 6 left, 24 right closed. That's just in the morning. It's already past that time. FICON 555, they're actually all wet. Oh, interesting. All right, I have to change my takeoff performance here. And what I can do here is actually go to page 2 here, go wet, and then go back and it'll change my takeoff speeds. Flaps 1, 23, 30, 35, that's better. Let's just check the D rate on this for a wet runway. And the D rate says I can still do a D rate of 36. So I'm pretty sure that's what we had in there. And one limit was 30, 35, 36 actually takeoff 2. So we can actually do takeoff 2, D rate 36, that's fine. Takeoff speeds deleted. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Every time I change anything, it sets the takeoff speeds, which is fine. It's good. All right, so good thing we checked the NOTAMs there. We got a wet runway. That's not what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. Anything else in here? 24 left Pappies. That's fine. SIDS. KLAX-1. ODP. Chatty 5. Corman 7. Takeoff minimums. Don't see anything for our Summer 2 departure. No, I don't see anything for the Summer 2 departure, so that all looks good. All right. Any questions?
Checked. No questions.
All right, and that is departure time right there. So let's do this. Let's get this on the APU generator. We'll also get the APU bleed on. Start warming up the cabin. Prepare for pushback and departure.
Hey guys, all packs are on board. Are we clear to close?
Thanks. It will be a long taxi.
Thanks. Let me know if you need anything.
All right, ramp from the flight deck. Copy, you're ready for pushback. Just stand by. We're just we'll just make sure we got all the numbers in here, and we'll be good to go. All right, so let's
Roger. Checked.
let's just do this. We just need to do
Departure checks completed. Bypass pin inserted.
payload and check our ZFW from the flight plan versus the actual. So the actual ZFW is only 111.9. So the flight plan quite overestimated what our gross weight would be. That's going to put the speeds even. Oops. I put that in as the gross weight. 111.9 with the ZFW. This is 132.1 for a takeoff weight. All right. It's actually heavier than planned, but that's fine. And one limit. So now we're
Locking gear.
at a gross weight of 131.8. Let's just check again. 131,800. Revise our takeoff data here so we can do flaps 1, but it's only a 22-degree selected temperature now. And I got another custom pushback that I made here just because I was ready a little bit early. So takeoff to 22. And 125, 132, 138. Set 138 up top as well. And that looks good. All right. Before start checklist.
Before start checklist. Flight deck door closed and locked. MCP.
Speed 138. Heading 251. Altitude 23,000.
Takeoff speeds.
V1 125. VR 132. V2 138.
CDU pre-flight.
Completed.
Rudder and aileron trim.
Checked and 0. Checked and 0. Free and 0. Free and 0.
Taxi and takeoff briefing.
Completed.
Anti-collision light on. Before start checklist complete.
All right, I think we're ready to go. Let me just make sure my flight tracker is tracking. Yeah, pre-flight
Checked.
stage, good. All right, these guys said they're all ready to go, except I see the ground power still hooked up, guys. You gotta unhook the ground power there. That's why you gotta look for these things here. Shocks removed.
Release
Power
parking
off.
brakes.
All right, you guys are ready for pushback. Brakes are off.
All
Clear for the
engines
push.
clear. Start at will.
Tail into the alley. And yeah, we'll start engines on the push here. Start sequence is 1, then 2.
Check.
Start engine 1.
Starting engine 1. Oil pressure.
Alright, lights go bright, mean the valves are moving. Lights go out, mean the valves are open. And boom, fuel flow, light off, away we go.
Set parking brakes.
Stand by.
Cockpit to ground. We have a good engine start. You can disconnect.
Brakes are set. Clear to disconnect.
Starter kit out.
Roger.
Number 1 stable.
Start engine 2.
Unlocking gear.
Starting engine 2.
Turn valve open. Comes the EGT. There goes our
Oil
tug.
pressure.
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass pin removed. Left is clear. Right is clear.
So we got fuel flow, we got light off. Valve lights are out.
Starter kit out.
Alright, give me 1 second, guys. Just gonna
Number
do one
2
thing.
stable.
Flaps 1. Flight control check.
Ready.
Full left. Full right. Center. Full up. Full down. Center. Full left. Full right. Center. Flight control check complete. After start checklist. Before taxi checklist.
Ford taxi checklist. Generators on. Probe heat on. Anti-ice off. Isolation valve auto. Engine start switches continuous. Recall.
Checked.
Checked. Auto brake. RTO. Engine start levers.
Idle detent.
Flight controls.
Checked.
Ground equipment.
Clear.
Clear. Ford taxi checklist complete.
Clear left.
Clear right.
We are doing actually pretty good here. We got off the gate more or less on time, maybe 5 minutes behind schedule. Not too bad, all things considered. But we seem to not be moving, so let's give her just a little juice again here. Let's give her a good solid 40%, see if it moves here. Why are we not moving? Well, something's going on. Shocks are out, I think. I believe so. Tug appears to be gone. Shocks are out. Let's see here, FS actions. Shocks are removed. Put the parking brake on again and take it off again. Why are we not moving? Something's going wacky here. Put a tug on there for a second. Take the tug off. Try it again. I love when the sims don't want to work. Got us pushed off the gate just fine. Alright, I'm a little stumped. Anyone want to offer any suggestions why we are not moving? There are chocks still on the airplane. Why are there still chocks on the airplane? There we go. That's better. Removed. Did I set them and then when they were already removed? Or did that reset somehow? There we go. Now we're moving. Ah, flight simulator. How we got pushed back with chocks on the airplane, I'll never understand, but anyhow. Los Angeles traffic. Alaska 1460 is pushed out of Terminal 6. Will be taxiing for departure runway 24 left on the summer departure. That's hilarious. I don't know how I got that. How I got that on there, but it's a strong tug to push that aircraft with the chock still on there. Alright, so it's not like a super long taxi, but it is a little bit kind of roundabout. We gotta go around all the terminals here.
Light
Get
deck.
out of here.
Okay, thanks. Captain, the cabin is secure.
At least the taxi light is on, right? Taxi light is on. It's just not very bright. Could put the wipers on as well, because we're getting a little bit of rain on there. Doesn't make much difference anyways, really. One day we'll live in a world where all these things will sort of work together. Because rain effects are kind of important for the immersion when you're flying. If you're flying through rain, you need to have rain on the windscreen, and the sim does put rain on the windscreen, but most, well, airliners are required to have wipers. If you want to be able to do approaches, you're required to have windshield wipers, so it's got to be something that's got to be built into the sim. That's another one of those features that should be built into the sim. I've talked about this before. Things that every aircraft should be able to do, and therefore should be built into the base model of the sim. Just going to turn these brightness down a little bit, because it's a little bit obnoxious right there. Just right up there with terrain and weather radar. Pretty much every airliner is going to need terrain and weather radar. So it would be the smartest thing to do would be to have one developer, either at Microsoft or some other developer, but one developer do all the work to build these things, put these things into the sim. Maybe it's me, but it just feels like it's taking a lot of power to keep this aircraft moving here. We do have quite a bit of fuel today. We got 20,000 pounds of fuel, but 30% to even just keep it rolling at 17 knots seems like a lot. And not too many people out here today on the VATSIM network. Kind of taxing around on my own. It's funny. I loaded up on my other computer, VATSpy. It was already loaded, so I had the when I suspended my laptop, of course, it saved the information from last night. So it looked really busy in Los Angeles last night. Refreshed it this morning, and it looked pretty lonely. There was like one airplane departing Los Angeles. That was me. But it looks like it's going to be a nice, clear day above the sky, so I'm glad we didn't fast forward the time. I'm glad we kind of stuck with the real time here. For all in all, like, considering that this is default scenery, like this is not I&I builds, this is nothing fancy. This is the default MSFS scenery. This is pretty good. It's not perfect. It's not as detailed as it could be. It's a little bit generic looking, but it's definitely not like a full-on generic auto-generated airport. There's definitely been some attention to detail here. It doesn't look too bad at all. Let me know if that's too loud as well, the background sound. It sounds really loud in my headset, but my headset's not necessarily balanced the same as the stream output, so please let me know if it's too too loud on stream. It definitely sounds maybe it's a little bit loud to me, so I might turn it down just a hair here. You want to be immersive, but not so much so that you can't even understand what I'm talking about. So there's the new terminal. Doesn't look like there's any jet bridges on it. My taxi lane just ended. Should be a straight line, but apparently not. Doesn't look like there's any jet bridges on the new terminal, so I'm kind of glad. I was supposed to park there last time. Kind of glad I didn't. Can hear you fine. Yeah. Much as you don't want to. Alright, fine. I'll turn it back up again just a little bit. Just about there. I get it. You don't actually want to hear me talk. You want to watch me fly, but you don't want to hear me talk. I get it now. I don't really like that background light very much. I'd rather have the... the backlighting than the floodlighting. I don't really like floodlighting my panels. It's just me. Call me crazy, but I don't like floodlighting. I've run into a few people who do like it, and I mean, you know, that's a nice thing is, you know, these things are designed where different people who with different preferences can use them different ways. But I've never been a big fan of the floodlighting of the instrument panels. I'd rather have just some nice backlighting. Keep the light level in the flight deck to a minimum so you can really see what's going on outside. And that's one thing too I've seen is like a lot of people on these long overnight transcons tend to put on the dome light in cruise just because it's sort of it's probably a little bit better for keeping you awake. It makes it a little bit harder to see what's going on outside, but at the end of the day, really, you're not looking too much at what's going on outside anyways when you're flying. When you're in cruise at 37,000 feet, you're not really looking outside too much. Yeah, I mean, you might have a glance outside, but at the end of the day, most of the information you need is coming to you from the instrumentation, so you're not going to spend a whole lot of time looking at looking outside. So having the light on bright, if it helps keep you awake in the long run, is probably a better thing. A little bit of a long taxi out, but I know that Los Angeles, they do like their north departures on the north runway, the south departures on the south runway, since we are going north. Trying to keep it realistic. Hard to read a newspaper with the dome light on, without the dome light on. Yeah. I think there is something to be said for just having a bright light on all day in the flight deck, or all night in the flight deck, just to kind of make it a bit more of an awake environment. Because it's very nice being in a dark flight deck and seeing stuff outside. And we were looking at some weird and wacky stuff. I think we were looking at the Starlink constellation, because there's a lot of satellites now out there. You start to see them at night, especially certain times of night, certain angles. You'll see a whole ream of satellites pass because they're probably all reflecting the sun's light. They're all oriented the same way, so they're probably all sort of in order, one at a time. But like, you know, 60 seconds or every couple minutes, you'll see one flash like really bright for a couple seconds as it moves through the sky, and then go dim and disappear again, and then another one will come by on a similar trajectory a couple minutes later. It must be the Starlink constellation, I'm thinking. Before takeoff checklist.
Before takeoff checklist. Flaps.
Flaps 1 green light.
Stabilizer trim.
I'm not sure I actually set that, so I'm just going to stop for a second. 5.6. 5.6 units set. 5.6 units. 5.6 units.
Before takeoff checklist complete.
Los Angeles traffic. Alaska 1460, take position runway 24 left departure, summer departure northbound. Runway entry procedure.
Okay. Cabin crew, take your seats. Clear on the approach.
Clear left.
Ready to go. Clear right.
Kind of forgot this is the short Boeing. I probably went way too far. Takeoff.
Thrust set. $80 knots.
Roger.
Checked. V1. Rotate.
Positive rate.
Positive rate.
Gear up.
Gear up.
LNAV.
Checked. 400 feet.
VNAV speed.
Checked.
N1.
Checked.
Command A.
Autopilot on. Checked.
Flaps up.
Speed checked. Flaps up set.
Alright, so just watching the TAT there as we accelerate the decrease to 16 degrees, so we don't need the anti-ice yet. Kill the wiper. And away we go, we're on our way to Portland. That was a nice departure. To get above the clouds, looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. Los Angeles traffic, Alaska 1460 is airborne off runway 24 left through 3400 on the summer 2 departure northwest bound. Final call, Los Angeles. Alright, now we got some power going to it here. We got N1, we got LNAV, we got VNAV speed, we're following it here. That was the 5,000 foot restriction we just passed there, so we're fine on that. And then the next one is dark below 12,000. Looking good. TAT still plus 14, looks like we're not going to need the anti-ice at all on this departure. Nice. After takeoff checklist.
After takeoff checklist. Engine bleeds. On. Packs. Auto. Landing gear. Up and off. Flaps. Up. No lights. After takeoff checklist completed.
Thank
Happy
you.
to release the cabin crew?
Go for it.
Okay.
I don't know why he always wants us to do it so early. I don't know if that's a European thing maybe, because they're always such short sectors. You got to do it before you hit 10,000, but this is pretty decent leg. We don't need to wait till we hit 10,000. Anywho. Important thing is we're on our way. We got through that with no icing. Love it, love it. And away we go. Alright, so dark below 12,000. We've still got 10 miles to go to dark, but when we hit 10,000, we're also going to accelerate too, so that's going to pitch us down and save us a lot of climb in there.
10,000.
It should, in theory, level off at 12,000. I'm curious to see it. It should. If we're in VNAV mode, it should respect all the restrictions on the SID here.
Happy to release the cabin?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm curious to see if it's going to do it. I think it will.
Portable electronic
Should.
devices
And I'm
may
going to
now be
monitor it
used
to make sure it does do what it's supposed to do,
communicate
because that, at the end of the day, is my job
or
sitting
any
here.
device that transmits.
I am here to make sure
These
to
devices
program
may
it,
interfere with the aircraft's
to set up the
communication
program,
and navigation systems.
set up the flight, and then make sure that the program is followed. Alright, I don't see too much also convective activity at this altitude, which is also good. So here comes 11,000. So it's 11 for 12. We got 4 miles to go, 4.7 miles to go to dark here. And there it is, FMC speed, VNAV pass. So there is the level off. It's a little bit disconcerting, I guess, if you see it on here and you have VNAV pass, you know it should work. I do like the fact that the bus has a alt magenta. So if it is armed to level off at a constraint, you'll see alt in magenta, and you know that it's planned a constraint at level off, not just alt blue is the guidance panel set altitude, but the magenta one indicates that it's a constraint programmed in the flight plan. So I'm glad that it makes it a little bit more reassuring that it is going to work the way it's supposed to. This one, you're taking it a lot on faith, but you don't see the fact that it knows stuff is in there, but you don't necessarily even see that it's armed and ready for that. Alright, there comes N1 VNAV speed. Away we go. And we do still have terrain on? Yeah, we do. There's just not much terrain out there at the altitude that we're at. It's mostly water. Did I somehow turn that down all the way? Alright, so it looks like our route's pretty clear of any kind of convective activity. There's some terrain painting now in the far distance. That's good. Just to sort of give me confirmation that it is working. The system is working. It's on. And away we go. Alright, 10,000 feet. We are able to release everybody. So they did get the seatbelts back to auto. The cabin crew's been released. And we're on our way. So let's have a quick progress check here. And we are showing landing in Portland at 1641 Zulu, 9.3 tons on board. Lots and lots of extra fuel. Gobs of gas today. Mostly because the weather's not supposed to be great in Portland. So we wanted to make sure we did have extra fuel to hang out, do a go-around, do a hold if we had to. Wait out some weather, and then if after 20, 30, 40 minutes, if it's still not looking any better, then we'll defer to our alternate. I don't think that's going to be an issue today. It's not terrible, bad enough that you're not going to get in, but nevertheless, when it's getting down towards the alternate minimums, you want to at least be reasonably certain that stuff is going to work out the way it's supposed to. So. Alright, here comes the turn at Summer. Off to Olaf, Ryzen. And eventually out there, Tessie and Scatter, or Sector, or whatever it's supposed to be. Not that it's going to be a big adjustment here momentarily, but here comes transition. Set standard. Transition set standard.
Standard set. Passing flight level 186.
I gotta change it from the New Zealand accent. I'm getting tired of him saying 186. I have not made any progress on my my plan to make my own FS2 crew voice pack, but I will. One of these days I'm going to sit down when I have a layover of any good length and record some audio for that. I just my last layover was very nice, except for the fact that when I got there, my hinge on my laptop pretty much broke. So I had to disassemble and see if I could kind of get it to stay, but it turns out that most of the plastic mount point for the hinge has crumbled away. I think it was weakened in one spot, and then it's one of those things where it's a lot of force. Like those hinges, they're very stiff, so you need a lot of force to move them. So it puts a lot of strain on the mount points, and especially if you kind of lose one mount point. So I took it apart, and there's 3 screws on each hinge holding it to the bottom part of the frame. If one of those goes, you now have both remaining screws are doing 50% more work than they were doing before. It doesn't take long for them all to start to crumble, so that's exactly what happened. One screw was kind of loose and not holding on properly, and so it put extra strain on the other ones, and they've now all crumbled. So I'm going to have to rebuild that hinge mount point later today to try and get my laptop back to a usable state. It's not terrible. It still kind of works. It still pivots.
1,000 to level.
I guess we should probably put our cruise altitude in. What did I say? 380, correct? And if in doubt, look up here. What did we set? We set 380. 380 is cruise. Alright, 380 is set. yeah, just a little annoying that broke. So I disassembled my computer, see if I could at least kind of temporarily kind of get it back together, and it's not terrible now, but yeah, I have to I basically got some plastic epoxy. I'm going to just completely rebuild the mount point, but stronger than before. Because that's the thing, is they build a lot of these things, you know, obviously weight is an issue when you're dealing with a laptop, so you don't want to have excess material, so they build them fairly, especially the hinges. I find the hinge is one of the weakest points on a laptop. I've had several laptops now. My first laptop, it was the hinge that went on that one as well. And yeah, they make them as strong as they think they need to be, but like then they put these, they dial up the stiffness on these springs to the point where you cannot fuel. Looks like the center tank is empty. Showing empty on both sides, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pull the pumps, center pumps off. Yeah, you both. Yeah, the hinges have such stiffness to them that they plan, you know, the shape and the pattern of this plastic to really kind of try to be as strong as possible without being excess weight. But I find that it could be a bit stronger, so I'm going to just rebuild it with some epoxy today and try and make the mount point just a solid, strong piece that's hopefully not going to break again. Hopefully. All right, we're doing pretty well here. Once again, the king of small talk here, though, and this is kind of my goal, is to kind of show you guys what goes on in flight deck. But at the end of the day, especially once you start to get these longer legs and more than an hour and a half, small talk is key. Finding a way to chat with a guy who's next to you, a guy you may know, a guy you may not know, and after a while, you start to get to know a lot of people. While working in the same company, you get to know people pretty well. You may not know everybody, but there's certainly some people that you start talking about all sorts of stuff, and maybe you go out and you know, go out for dinner or whatever as well when you're on your layovers, and you get to know some people pretty well. Some other people not so much, but try and always to find things to talk about, because it's just yeah, you need to kind of keep the lines of communication open. So you don't have to talk the whole time. You know, if you want to just sit there, stare out the window and read, a lot of guys don't take offense at that, you know, especially longer legs, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. Trying to find stuff to talk about for that length of time can be very yeah, there's certain topics though that you can usually rely on. And again, it depends on knowing your demographic, but when you get into the airline business, you're dealing with a lot of people who are usually at similar ages, somewhat similar life stages, and I mean, you get a range of ages, but first thing to try and talk about. Yeah, and it's funny because we go to these default topics all the time because they're easy and they're relatively non-threatening. You know, you ask people where they live. Like, some people live close to the airport, some people live far to the airport. You can sympathize with their long commute or short commute. You know, some people commute by air. So guy I was with the other day, he just recently moved to Montreal from Toronto, so he now lives in Montreal, commutes to Toronto. He's actually getting a base transfer, so eventually he won't have to do that anymore, but for a couple months anyways commuting. I have more power to people that can commute, because that is a tough gig. You know, that often makes each of your work trips a day longer in total. By the time and it depends on where you're going to, but by the time you've left your home early, because you don't want to leave it to the last minute. Stuff always goes wrong in the airline business. You don't want to leave commuting to the last minute, so you want to go a couple of flights early. The nice thing for Toronto, Montreal is there's tons and tons of flights, tons and tons of options, tons of ways to get between those two airports. So as long as you're there, you know, 3 or 4 flights before the one you would absolutely need to take to be on time, you're usually A-okay. Even if they cancel 1 or 2 flights, there's usually some spots available. But the second they cancel more than 1 flight, oftentimes the remaining passengers distributed along the flights the rest of the day, you start running out of options pretty quickly. The jump seat's always an option. You can do that, but it's not ideal, but it'll get you there. But you need to give yourself time. So you got to give yourself lots of time on either end to get to commute, you know. Let's see what else. And then even getting home, like, depending on when you get home, if you're delayed, you might miss the last flight home for the day. You might have to spend an extra night away from home, pay for a hotel room, or, you know, crash pad or something like that, and cost yourself an extra day, half day commute home, you know, first flight in the morning. So depending on where you live, it can be tough. And some people don't live, like, there's some commutes that are pretty easy. Toronto, Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, those kind of commutes are pretty easy because they're pretty close. It's like an hour and something flight, and there's a lot of very regular service. You know, it's not quite hourly service, but I think it's something like 13, 14 flights a day. So you miss one, there's lots to kind of absorb the slack and get you, get you to your destination. You start looking at some of the longer commutes. Now, I won't say I admire, but certainly have a lot of respect for people who can do the longer commutes. You do the transcontinental, the Vancouver to Toronto commute. That is an epic commute. That's a 4.5, 5 hour flight commute, and you got to show up still 3 or 4 hours early because you got to leave a couple of flights early. You can't take the last one just in case there's any kind of delay. You need to be going early. Generally, some airlines have commuter policies, some airlines don't. Some airlines will have a policy where as long as you showed up at least 2 flights early, you had 2 flights with open seats that you can show that you had a chance of getting to work on time, and then for whatever reason both flights get cancelled or both flights get an earlier flight gets cancelled, both flights get oversold, and you get bumped because you're a commuter. Some airlines will put that in writing that as long as you've had at least 2 flights, showed up in time to make at least 2 flights, and we're not able to make either flight for reasons beyond your control, they won't hold it against you if you don't make it to work on time. They'll find somebody else, and it won't go as like, oh, you have an attendance problem. Some airlines don't have that. Some airlines, it's up to you to be at the place you need to be when you need to be there. So some airlines, you have to leave even earlier. And then there's places you can live where there's just not a lot of service. Some people live in, I won't say remote locations, but some of the smaller cities that maybe only have 2 or 3 flights a day. So you'll have to come down on the first flight of the day, even if your pairing doesn't start till quite late in the day, or maybe even you'll always have to come down the day before just to make sure you make it on time. So commuting is something I have a lot of respect for the guys that do it, the guys and gals that do it, because it's not an easy lifestyle. You have to be willing to give up a lot. You have to be willing to flex and change to deal with it. That being said, living away from the main bases for most airlines are usually in major cities, which are almost impossible to find reasonably priced accommodation anywhere nearby anyways. And maybe you have family near, your family's at the smaller cities, it's not at the main bases. So I understand why people do it. But I personally, I don't know if I ever could. It's so much extra stress in your life. So much of the commute is kind of out of your control in terms of you're relying on the airline itself to get you to and from work. And anything could go wrong. It could be that your commuting flights are delayed. It could be that your flight is delayed and you miss your last flight home, like I said, and all of a sudden another night away from home. I have a lot of respect. There's a guy actually on YouTube. I was kind of watching a couple of his videos. I can't remember his username right now, but he did a bunch of videos just basically kind of talking about commuting. He commutes. Where did he say? I think he said he lives near Minneapolis, but he's based in Newark, so a good halfway across country. You're talking about a 2 or 3 hour flight, and yeah, those days when he's got to go out to start to work, he's got to leave early. So one thing you'll notice about commuters is that they prefer longer pairings and longer blocks of days off, which 100% makes sense. The worst thing you can do to a commuter is give them like a schedule where it's like, okay, here's 2 days on, you get 1 day off, you get another 2 days on, another day off, another 2 days on, or something like that. Like that's the worst thing you can do to a commuter because they can't go home in that 1 day. They got to just hang around and wait for the next pairing. So commuters try to ram as many really long pairings close together, as many as they can legally do, and then they get multiple days off to try and get back home for a couple days off. And sometimes even then it won't work out. I've talked to commuters where it's like, yeah, my schedule this month is just terrible. I tried to bid for blocks of like 5 or 6 days, but I ended up with 3 days and then 2 days off and then another 3 day, and it's like that's barely enough time to go home. If you only have 2 days off, especially if you have to travel on the first day and travel back on the second day, you almost lost all your days off. It's some days it's almost not worth going home. It's just better off spending time in a hotel, pay a little bit of extra money. But yeah, it's a tough lifestyle. I could not do it. I don't think there's any amount of money that an airline could pay me that would make it worth commuting on a regular basis. I could do it like temporarily, and that's the other thing too. Is like the guy I was with the other day. Like I said,
1,000 to level.
There you go, 370 climbing 380. He recently moved to Montreal, and for the last, it basically was back in December, so two months ago, he moved to Montreal. So he's only commuting for 2 months, and then he put in for a base transfer. He got the base transfer in April, so like for 4 months he's commuting back and forth. 3 months he's commuting back and forth. That's not terrible. Knowing that there's an end game, knowing that this is only a temporary measure, that you just got to make it work for this 3 months, not as bad. But when you have just a permanent lifestyle of commuting, and it's a long distance, no end in sight, you're on it for the long haul. That couldn't do that. I could do it temporarily if I had to, I suddenly had to get a base transfer tomorrow, but it's only for 3 months, I could do that. I could make it work. You just sort of push your way through it, but to be doing it forever and ever, that'd be tough. That's one thing you can small talk about anyways. Commuting, the commute is always one. Find out where people live, you know, it's pretty easy, pretty non-committal. The other thing that you can always small talk, people love to talk about their kids. So ask them, ask somebody if they got kids, and if they do, ask about their kids. Ask them the kids' names, ages, talk about their school, what do they do. People love talking about their kids, and it's a great non-threatening topic. FMC speed, VNAV path. Just give me 1 second, guys. Alright, sorry about that, guys. I had to go and momentarily solve a crisis with a dog chewing something that they were not supposed to. Of course. Anyways, yeah. So let's see here. We're not quite back. We're not quite at scatter yet. I don't think Tessie was on our flight plan. Let's just have a quick look at our flight plan here. So we do need to start doing some tracking here, but I don't believe that we're going to find it in the flight log. Oh, we do have the fixes. Some flight plans won't put the star fixes in the flight plan, some will. So we do have Tessie in there. So let's go ahead and put that information in there. So we crossed Tessie at 1503. Let's do our tracking here, 1503. Let's just do it in blue because it's just easier to see what we're doing. And the fuel over was 16, which is higher than planned, which is great. All right, and then we'll do a quick math test here. So 1508. 1508, that's fine. All right, keep going. 15, 18, 21. After that, it's a long way with no fixes. 1600 exactly. 16, 13, 6. And please feel free to criticize me if you find a math error, but I'm just doing this off the top of my head here. 16. Unfortunately, it's usually pretty easy math. It's just adding small numbers a little bit at a time here. And at this point, we wouldn't really even care because we'd be probably in the descent. But it's just good practice. And then you're also ready. If you do something does go untowards, you're kind of watching these things. 16:47, which is pretty close to what's estimated there. So that's actually pretty good. Good times. Perfect. Love it. All right, then we get some traffic up ahead descending. Good times. All right, so we did a fuel check, we did a time check, and we would compare that to original takeoff time. It all looks pretty accurate. And yeah. Let's just throw stations up there as well so I can actually just kind of get a sense of where we are here, because I don't know some of these fixes here, but there we go. Yeah. All right, good. And we're slowly making our way up there. Quick check. No VATSIM ATC. No. Nothing. Nothing. What are you going to do? Yeah. So small talk, I mean, ask people about their kids. You got to find... And you never know. I mean, you can talk about stuff that's in the news. You can talk about things related to the industry. We often find that you can, you know, it's good to read up and keep up on the industry, and then you can talk about things that have happened in the industry lately. The one that was kind of a little bit interesting last week, and we talked about it briefly, was the fact that Flair got 4 of their aircraft repossessed by the leasing company, which is, it's not that it never happens. It happens from time to time, but it's not too common. Interest rates, oh my god, yeah. But yeah, it's not too common that aircraft get repossessed, you know, and the way it was done, it was very surreptitiously. It was very sudden. You know, I don't know that Flair got a lot of notice, but basically somebody snuck into one of the airplanes and took the logbooks and rendered the airplane unflyable so that Flair could not continue to use it, because they said, we're taking the airplane back. You're not paying your bills on time, or whatever reason. There was a disagreement about the bill payment, and the company that owned the airplane said, we're taking it back. And snuck into the airplane in the middle of the night while it was parked and took the logbooks away, so they couldn't fly it the next day. And had to cancel a whole bunch of flights, so it really kind of turned into a bit of a PR disaster for Flair. Yeah, it just that was a bit surprising. So we talked about that a little bit, a couple times in the flights, because it certainly makes you wonder in the long run, like, is Flair a viable concern if they're having this much trouble paying their bills, and or is this a case of perhaps being a bit over aggressive? Certainly, Flair has been extremely. I took the logbook so I can learn to fly. You know. Flair has grown very quickly to a rather large fleet of aircraft. I think they've got up close to 50 airplanes now. It's a pretty big, quick growth in the airline business. And sometimes you do have to do that initially. You have to kind of really grow very quickly in the beginning to kind of create that route network, to create a critical mass of routes that cross each other and be able to gain enough efficiencies when you reach a certain critical mass. Just trying to operate an airline with 2 or 3 airplanes, you lose one of those airplanes, you got to start canceling flights. So. Did they grow too quickly, too aggressively, and is that hurting them now? You know, some of the things are starting to catch up with them. I hope not. 46 aircraft now. Yeah. Anyways, but there's all sorts of stuff. There's always stuff happening in this business. You never know. So you can find stuff to talk about like that. One thing I do kind of I find myself just asking questions, being relatively new to my company, new to my airplane again. I ask questions of people that come up while I'm reading. So I'm reading pretty much almost constantly every day. I try to read the manuals at least a little bit, a couple pages every day, try and learn a little bit about the airplane. So I ask questions, and I try play with stuff in the FMS when we're flying, because the FMS is incredibly complicated. There's lots and lots of functions and stuff that's often buried in there that doesn't get used in the day-to-day flying. So. You know, ask questions about this, especially if you're in the right seat. If you're the guy sitting in the right seat and thinking about an upgrade into the left seat, pick the captain's brains. Pick the brains of every captain you fly with. Every captain you fly with is going to be different, and they're going to offer different insights into how they operate, how they think. They're gonna have different things that they've noticed in the manuals. The manuals are huge. The manuals for these airplanes are thousands upon thousands of pages long. It's almost impossible for any one person to know them all, but chances are that every person has had some unique experience in the airplane where there's something unusual has happened, and they've learned something either from doing something the wrong way and finding out about it, or at least after having dealt with an issue, going in and reading a certain section of the manual in depth to really understand what happened. So whether they did it right or wrong, they've learned from that experience because something happened that really made them dig deep into the manual. So you can learn a lot from people that way too. So that's a great topic often is asking people about the aircraft. How do they decide who should qualify for the left seat? Am I a pilot in real life? Yes. I'm going to talk a lot about this industry because it's all I know about. I do this in real life, and then I come home and I do it again, all over again. Yeah. How do they decide who should qualify for the left seat? Well, that's an excellent question, and it depends on the airline. I've been at a number of airlines now. The most basic decision is seniority. So usually airlines will have a bid process of some kind. If an airline only has a single type of airplane, it's pretty straightforward. You're on that type of airplane. So yeah, pretty much all they will have is a bid process for upgrades. So at some point they'll say we're accepting bids for upgrades. It might be a form you have to fill out. It might be you might have to email a resume to the chief pilot or something like that to get yourself on the list. But at the end of the day, it comes down to primarily seniority. In a bigger company with multiple aircraft types, you'll often have what they call the equipment bid every couple times a year, usually, where you'll have a bid and based on your seniority, you'll bid to be on certain types of equipment. So you can, if you're on the 737 right now and you want to fly the 777, you can put in a bid for that. And the equipment bids and the captain bids primarily go in seniority order at the end of the day. It's first hired, first offered the job. So it'll usually be seniority, but it'll also be up to the person to bid for it. At most companies, they will not automatically assign anybody to be a captain. It's up to every first officer to bid for it, because the best person to judge usually if you're ready for an upgrade is yourself. You know yourself better than anybody. You know that you've been studying. You know that you've been learning along the way. You know that you feel ready to try it. You know that better than anybody else. So pretty much no airline will assign anybody to be a captain. Everyone will have to bid for it. It'll be assigned in seniority order, but if you don't feel up to it, if you're new in an airplane and you're not feeling up to it, don't bid for the left seat. Spend some time in the right seat, get used to it. Eventually you bid for the upgrade. Some airlines will have some kind of a matrix or some kind of a minimum competency that they might need. So this is usually more a factor at the regional airline level, where you're often dealing with less experienced pilots, a lot less hours, and the insurance company will have certain requirements that your captains meet. So they may say you have to have a minimum number of hours. Your captain has to have 5,000 hours, or they may have to have 1,000 hours on type before they can upgrade. Or they may have a combination. I worked for one airline where they had about 8 different combinations of total time, command time, time on the aircraft type, time on just airline flying as in general, all various different things, and they had a whole bunch of sort of different ways you could meet it depending on what you had. Maybe you had a lot of time, not as much time on type. Okay, that'd be okay. Or maybe you had not as much total time, but you had lots of time on type. So there were lots of different ways you could kind of meet they called it the matrix. So there were lots of different ways you could meet the matrix, and as long as you met one of those particular combinations of criteria, you could be upgraded. But yeah, it's generally seniority order. Most airlines there'll be a minimum qualification, but the larger airlines usually they won't hire anyone who doesn't meet that qualification right off the bat. They won't even, because no airline hires first officers. It was great. I read this once and it's a perfect quote. No airline hires first officers. Every airline hires captains, future captains. If they don't see you as potentially being a captain down the road, there's no point in really hiring you, because they need everybody to be a captain at some point. There will be exceptions. There will be people who will become lifetime FOs. And again, this goes into the whole bidding for it and knowing yourself, because most airlines will have a limit to how many times they'll let you run the captain course. You can fail the captain course. Most airlines will have some sort of a process you have to go through. There'll be a training course. There'll often be like a command course. There will of course be simulator training. There'll be some loft events, some line-oriented flight training events. So, kind of flying on a simulated flight and something goes wrong and how do you deal with it type of flight in the simulator. But they'll have all sorts of different checks, and you can fail out of it at any point in time. So a lot of airlines will have a limited number of times they will let people apply to be a captain. If you fail out of the process, you can back out of the process before you fail, but if you fail out of the process, they will often limit it. You might get 2 chances at it. Most airlines will usually give you 2 kicks at it. If you fail it the first time, it's a good check to really sort of say, okay, why did I fail? What do I need to learn? What do I need to work on? And often it's not, some people it might be technical, but often it's more personality, command skills, decision making, and management and things like that. That's usually where people kind of really start to fall off the wagon. And if you don't know your technical stuff, that could really hurt you. But it's usually more likely the softer skills that people don't know. So yeah, airlines will usually give people 2 kicks at the can. If you fail out of it twice, you may become a permanent lifetime FO. Some people just are not born for command at the end of the day. It's not an easy thing. It's a lot of responsibility. The airlines certainly don't take it lightly, but like I said, they hire everybody with the idea that everyone's going to become a captain at some point. They don't hire people who aren't going to be qualified at some point. But it's up to you to decide when to do it. It's an excellent question, though. It's a process that varies a lot from airline to airline. Some airlines it's pretty loosey-goosey. It's like, okay, yeah, you want to apply? Yeah, you sort of met our minimum requirements. Great. Some airlines don't have a great command course. Some airlines have a very in-depth command course. Generally, the higher up you go, the bigger, the risk, the more people you got with you, the heavier the aircraft, probably the more effort they're going to put on this whole command course. So I know where I work right now. It's a multi-day. It's like a week-long. It's like a week-long course before you do the sims. And the sim, it's like a whole nother initial course again, but from the left seat, and then you start doing the command simulation where you actually not just learning the technical skills of flying from the left seat, but learning the soft skills of how do you manage the operation, how do you keep a bad situation from turning into a dangerous situation, what do you do when your back's against the wall and you have very few choices. What choices do you make? How can you make a tough choice when you really have to? It's not the easiest thing in the world. It really isn't. Yeah, like I said, I mentioned this, I think, last stream or 2 streams ago that I did seat support for a command upgrade candidate, and it was fantastically educational for me as well. I learned a lot kind of about what they're looking for, what kind of things you can see, and just sort of, again, it's all about what do you do under pressure when things are really kind of starting to fall apart. You've got a bad situation, you don't have a whole lot of fuel, you don't have a lot of time to deal with it. What do you do? How do you make a choice? Are you paralyzed before you can even make a choice? And these are the kind of things they want to know. They want to make sure that it's not that they're preparing you for that specific scenario, but they want to see how you handle. It's the process of how do you handle something going very wrong, and deal with that stress. That's what they want to see. So, yeah, it's assuming you make it through all that, then of course you get to sit in the left seat with the training captain for, depending on the airline, 25, 50, 75, 100 hours, however long they feel until they can turf you out on the line. Just building up experience, just operating day to day, because you can't make up the stuff that goes wrong day to day. Every day is a fresh battle in this business. It really is. It's hilarious sometimes. The stuff you can't even conceive the stuff that happens. Yeah. The stuff that causes you to be late day after day. And you're not always late, but you're late often enough. Anywho. Coming up to SNS here. Trying to get a sense. I don't even know my geography. I don't know my VORs in California very well. That must be Oakland right there, so it's not too bad. Let's see here. So 1647. We're about an hour and a half from landing in Portland, so we got probably about a half an hour before I've got to start setting up for this arrival. So yeah, when you're doing small talk, the key is often you don't, unless you know the person you're with, you often want to stay away from the more controversial, heated topics. Politics and religion are two you kind of want to avoid in the flight deck, just because you don't want to close down the barriers of communication if you find you're on opposite sides of a fence. Politics, it becomes so polarized lately that if you find you're on the wrong side of the fence, it can really kind of shut down the communication line with the guy you're sitting next to. And you may not mean to. You may just be voicing your opinion, but they may completely disagree with you. And yeah, it's a tough one. Politics is one you tend to stay away from, unless you know 100% you're going to agree. And even if you think you're 100% agree, politics is a spectrum. You know, you might be left, you might be right, you might be somewhere in the middle, you might be far left, you might be super right, or you might be somewhere more moderate. So even when you kind of agree on some things, you'll often find that you don't agree on everything. So it's one that can very quickly cause a breakdown in communication. So it's one you tend to stay away from too, but you don't want to talk too much about politics. If there was a catastrophic change in someone's life, how old is too old to become a commercial pilot? Well, that's great small talk that's great small talk. What are your thoughts on the LGBTQ community and their rights? Oh, yeah. I mean, I believe that everyone should be free to be who they want to be, and as long as it's not having a negative impact on anybody else, do what you want to do. But again, you'll find people who will disagree with that. You know, I don't want my kids exposed to that. I don't want you talking about that in front of my kids. And it's like, you know, kids are going to grow up into this world. Like at some point, they're going to run into people like this. You can't shelter them forever. At what point's the right point to start talking about them? I read about this just this morning, just last night, that it is going to be illegal to talk in Florida schools about a menstrual cycle before you're in grade 6, which to me is just this is just men just making rules because they have no input from women, because it's like there's girls who are having their periods long before that. So but it's illegal even if it happens to them. It's illegal. It'll be illegal for them to talk about it in Florida schools if this law that they want to pass in Florida passes. It's like, oh my God, like, you know, you can't make people ashamed of what happens to them. At the end of the day, it's beyond your control. But you also need to be able to get information. Their teachers will not be allowed to answer any questions about it before they're in grade 6. That's just an arbitrary age. Like, what a stupid, drives me nuts. You know, it's something that should be dealt with, or should be able to be dealt with at the time it happens or before. And for some kids, it happens quite young. Some kids start quite early. Some girls start quite early. It's just a natural variation. Some people start early, some people start late, but it shouldn't be illegal for people to talk about it if it can happen at that age. But that's the law that's being passed in Florida. Before grade 6, they will not be allowed to talk about the menstrual cycle in school, and it just blows my mind. Like that's something we can even. It seems like so much of America is taking just huge steps backwards in terms of being able to talk and communicate about the most basic things in the world, the most basic life functions. Yeah, the best way to deal with it, just don't talk about it. If we do that, it won't happen, right? Yeah, exactly. Like and right there, like that is a bill right there that's been written by men, 100%. That probably no input from a woman whatsoever in this bill. I'm just gonna do this quick check here when we just passed Selena's here. Anyways, it really I couldn't even believe that when I read it. It's like, how is this something you're even contemplating? All right, so we just passed it a second ago here. Let's get the time right off the FMS. So the FMS said we actually passed it at 15:21, so we'll go with that. Right on time. Beauty. Lido is smart. Lido knows. 14.3. We're very slightly higher than the planned fuel, so we have a little bit extra fuel. That's good. We're not losing fuel. We're not leaking fuel. That all checks. Yeah, that sort of thing just blows me away. I was reading and I'm just like, I couldn't even imagine putting my kids through that school system. They're not even allowed to talk about it. I don't even want to think about that yet, but at the same time, it's not something that you can say, like, you're not going to be able to pick the age where you start talking about it, because it's going to happen at some point, and probably sooner than you would hope anyways, sooner than you expect. Anyways, if there's a catastrophic change in someone's life, how old is too old to become a commercial pilot? So, I mean, at the end of the day, there's a mandatory ICAO retirement age of 65. Above 65, you can't fly in international airspace. You can't cross a border and be a captain of an airplane. So there is an upper age limit to becoming a commercial pilot. Now, that is the ICAO standard. Individual countries can adopt a different standard. So some countries have pushed the retirement age higher than ICAO wanted to push it. And it is possible to do that. However, in order to conform to the ICAO standard, you won't be able to cross an international border as a pilot at that point, as a pilot in command. So it's the pilot in command that this limit usually applies to. It's not so much the pilot, the FO. So there have been cases where airlines have said we will allow captains to downgrade to first officer when they reach the mandatory retirement age and spend an extra 5 years flying if they would like to. And some airlines need that for the experience. They need it for the staffing. But in most cases, to keep the scheduling easy, the mandatory retirement age will be there. So the real question is, like, how much time can you get in the business before that? It's going to take a few years to get you through your training. You know, kind of, you got to figure out. At bare minimum, it's going to take you 2 years to get a commercial license. 2 years to get a commercial license. And then, depending on what country you're in, like in the U.S., it's 1,500 hours is the minimum to be a first officer in an airline. So you got to find somewhere to work for a couple of years. Usually, you can't do more than 700 hours a year. So if you find a good job, you might still take you 2 years to build up enough hours to get into an airline flight deck. And then you got a couple of years in the right seat probably before you get in the left seat. Then you want that experience in the right seat, especially when you're relatively new and your license is relatively new. You want that time. You want that experience. You want to learn, so that when stuff does go wrong, you've got a good instinct about what to do. So how old? There's not really any time limit, but you know, if you're getting up into your 40s, you've got 20 years of work and life ahead of you. You're not going to be making the top of the pay scale at any airline. There are airlines where guys and gals get in really young. People in their 20s get into a major airline, especially now with the pilot shortage the way it is. People in their 20s get into a major airline. They're going to have 40 years of seniority building. So they're going to have great seniority. If you're entering an airline in your 40s, you're never going to make it to the top of the list. You're never going to make it to the top of the list in the airline. You might make it halfway. You might make it 2/3 of the way up the list, and that might be the highest you ever get. Will the schedule be good enough? Will the pay be good enough? 20 years probably is reasonable. You can get to being a pilot in your 40s and probably make a reasonable go of it. If you can get to an airline reasonably quickly, and in this day and age you can. But if you get much older than that, it's just down to time. In the beginning, in the first years in the airline industry, you do not make much money. You make very little money. Even at the major airlines, the major airlines, you're probably making an okay living, but it's probably enough to pay the bills, not save away a whole lot. It's not till you get 10 years down the road, start being left seat on a wide body, which might be 20 years down the road at a lot of airlines, that you really start to pull in, like, you know, the multiple six-figure salaries that people kind of associate with airline pilots. People associate airline pilots with having a great salary, and if you're the captain, usually it's pretty decent. But the first officers, usually until you're definitely 10 to 15 years in, you will not make a good salary. So if you could put 20 years into the career, you probably will be able to make a good salary, save enough money to retire. But anything less than that, I would definitely think twice about doing it. If you're doing it just for fun, because, you know, if you're, and I've known people that have done it. I've known a lot of people. It's funny. There's one career that seems to lead to aviation more than the other, and that's police officer. I've known quite a number of retired police officers that got into aviation, that became pilots and became airline pilots halfway through their career. They decided they didn't want to be police officers anymore, but they stayed on the job long enough, 20 years sometimes on the job, to get a pension, to qualify for a pension. So they got their police pension. So then they're not as paranoid about saving for retirement as a pilot. You can get a job, you can pay your day-to-day bills, pay your expenses, but you don't have to worry quite as much about about saving for retirement. Then that's okay. But yeah, if this is your primary career and this is you're trying to save money for retirement and have a pension, whatever, 20 years kind of as a minimum, I think you need to give to this career. So you need to be into this career in your 40s at the latest, and even then that might be too late. Nowadays it's hard to say because the career arc has shifted, and the pilot shortage is so real, it's so acute. Everybody who's got some reasonable level of experience can get into an airline now. It used to take you 10, 15, 20 years to get into an airline. Now it's down to 5 years, 3 years. Some of the people that are getting hired by the regional airlines, it's crazy. The ink on their license is barely even dry, and they're getting hired to work in commercial airlines. So the equation has changed lately. And Black Diamond, good day, sir. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, just kind of finished a chat about what the minimum age is to become a pilot and how to kind of get through that career. So we are on our way up to Portland here. Let's see if we can see it yet. Coming up on our screen, 640. Might see it up there. Yeah, can sort of see it off there in the distance. So it's getting up there. It's still a bit cloudy here in California. We're sailing up the west coast of California, going from Los Angeles up to Portland. And yeah, we got about an hour and 15 minutes left on our flight here. So if you got any questions you want to ask, now's a good time. In probably about 15 or 20 more minutes, I'm going to have to start setting up that arrival into Portland, make sure we got time to do it. That's one of the nice things about long hauling is you have time for this. When we're doing those CRJ legs, it's like you're up and you're down, and it's a great example of how the career really works, though. Like, literally, you take off, you level off and cruise, and before you even level off and cruise, you're already getting the ATIS, you're already setting up the arrival, because you don't have time when you level off and cruise. By the time you level off and cruise, it's time to already move on to the next step. It's already time to start moving on to the descent briefing. Some of these short legs you do in a regional jet, you might have 5 minutes in cruise, 4 minutes in cruise, 6 minutes in cruise. You know, you need to be set up for the arrival before you even reach cruise, so that you can brief it, so that you're ready for the descent before you start down. And doing this stuff single pilot, like I do have FS2 crew, but at the end of the day, FS2 crew is a pretty dumb autopilot, or a pretty dumb co-pilot. They can do the most basic stuff. They can follow the SOPs and you know, put the flaps down and the gear down when I tell them to, and run the checklist. But they can't really make tactical decisions. They can't grab an ATIS and say, "Hey, this looks like the active runway. You know, let me set up your FMS for you." That's one thing the FS2 crew cannot do, is set up the FMS for you, and I wouldn't want them to. I wouldn't want it to, but you know, when you have a second person who can set up the FMS for you while you're flying and thinking about the approach, that can take a whole load off. So I kind of like this longer range flying, this 1 to 2 hour leg. We get lots of time to chat. Before we have to set up the approach, we can set up the approach at a reasonable time. We're not rushing through it to get it done before our top of descent. We can take time to think about it. Alright, anywho. Let's see here. FS2 crew co-pilot would be a poor hire, yeah. They will never pass the upgrade course. That's exactly right. They will never become a captain. They're a lifer FO. That's funny, but it's true. And I mean, you do get some people like that. There are a few people out there that just can't quite pull it together. They make great first officers, and the skill for being a first officer is very different from being a captain. They call the first officer the chameleon, because as much as there is a standardized operating procedure for every aircraft, every captain's got their own little trick, their own little way of doing stuff, their own little techniques, and every first officer basically kind of adapts to that and says, "Okay, I'm here to support the captain and do what they need done. So I'm gonna help them run the aircraft the way they like to run it." So yeah, the FO will change its shape. I mean, even the conversation sometimes, some FOs will agree with whatever politics the guy in the left seat wants, just to keep the lines of communication open, just to make sure that they're not impeding that communication. So yeah, the FO is the chameleon. They're constantly changing their colors to match whatever the environment they're in. You know, if you got a very pro-union flight deck, the guy's like, "Oh yeah, good contract. Yeah, we gotta hold their feet to the fire and be ready to strike just in case." Or you may get a guy who's not very pro-union, he's pro-management. It's like, "Oh, the union's just doing nothing but taking our money and not doing anything for it." You know, that's why you try and stay away from those controversial topics, because you don't want someone who's just going to agree with you blindly. You do want an FO that's going to challenge you a little bit as a captain. You know, not in an adversarial way, but in a supportive way. You can challenge in a supportive way where, "Are you sure about that?" And maybe the guy's done something wrong. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you know what? Actually, I did look at that wrong. Thanks for catching that." You know, you don't have to be adversarial about it. You don't have to fight with them about it. You just may want to offer up some suggestions and opinions. FS2 crew will never do that. FS2 crew is what I was trying to be when I was in the seat supporting that command sim, where I was just there. That's the guy who was running the SOPs with them and reading the checklists and you know, gear and flaps and everything, work the radio, but not making any decisions, not making any choices. My only advantage over FS2 crew was I could program the FMS to do what the captain asked me to do. But I was not doing anything to I was trying not to do anything to offer suggestions or advice, just because when you're doing a captain upgrade, the trainer really wants to see the captain is the one who's leading the ship, he's making the choices. You know, you don't want to be commanding from the right seat. It is possible to command from the right seat. There have been crashes that have happened because the person in the right seat had more experience, was more assertive than the person in the left seat. It's not very often the case, but it happens. You get the reversal of the power dynamic, where the guy in the right seat is the one who through their communication is calling the shots at the end of the day. They're making the choices. Either by not letting the captain make choices, or by being so assertive, and the captain is a relatively passive person that they just simply let the FO make do what they want. It happens from time to time. So you want to be that, you want to walk that fine balance between being assertive enough that you're bringing up things that you feel are important to you, and as a captain, you have to be able to deal with that, to take in information from someone who's being assertive, who's offering up advice, suggestions. Take it in, listen to it, weigh it, consider it, and decide if maybe they're right. Sometimes they will be right. They'll have a good course of action. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes it'd be like, no, based on my experience, I don't think that is the correct course of action. But the key is not to shut down the communication. If you disagree with somebody, you do it in the most pleasant, supportive way possible. I like that idea. I would think I would do that, except I've seen this before. Yeah, that sort of thing, you know. I use FS2 Crew in order to blame someone when I make mistakes. Yes, exactly. That's what the FO is there for, to blame. Yeah, as a captain, it's important to make sure you include the FO. And I have to say, like, the new company I started at, the culture is really very good. I have not encountered too many people, and maybe it's the aircraft I'm on, and maybe they're all senior and cranky on the wide bodies, but the culture of the company that I'm in is very, very supportive. The captains are very inclusive. They include you in every step of the way. Like when they're doing stuff and they're making choices, they're generally telling you why they're making the choices. They're often, most of them tend to kind of make their choices and their decision making out loud, just so you're included, you're in the loop, and you can sort of, you're a sounding board. They can reflect it off you, and it does a good job. I really have to say, like, I feel very included, very for the most part. I see all sorts of strategies, you know, even just using the guy's name, saying the FO's name over and over again. It helps to sort of like make them feel like a person. They're not just there as a warm body filling the seat, but they're there as a person and as an individual, and that their opinion is valued. So simple little techniques like that, but making sure that you don't, you know, even when you disagree with their suggestion, take it in, consider it. You know, if at the end of the day you reject it, try to do it in a respectful way. Don't definitely, you know, it's obvious, but you'd be amazed how some people just communicate. Some people just, you know, when things don't go well, they really lash out at the people around them. And that just shuts down the lines of communication. And then if the guy has a good suggestion in the future, he's not going to bring it up. All right, so we're on our way to Spencer. We're going to start at Spencer. We got 16:13. Yeah, we still got about 40 minutes to get there. It'll be 10 minutes or so. We'll just start getting set up here. Yeah, it's amazing, the culture, though. And you get the culture comes from the top of these companies, but you think that airlines are all the same, and they are all the same in a way. They're all doing the same job, but the different ways they approach it. It is quite amazing how diverse these cultures can be, how much more open some companies can be to input. Like I said, and you know, like the new company I'm in, they're very good about also just sharing information. You know, you go out, you do the walk around, you come back from doing the walk around, and you sit down again, and the guy's like, okay, here's everything I did since you were gone, and literally will tell you everything, even though you know what he's supposed to do, because it's the SOPs, follow the SOPs. They'll go with it. They'll say, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. Get yourself caught up, let me know, and then we'll continue on whenever you're all caught up. And it really has been a very positive experience thus far. As an FO, just a lot of respect, a lot of inclusion, and I think that works well. I think that's the way it should be. Really, it is. I've flown with people who they know the SOP so well they don't even need me along, and they just go through everything themselves and don't include you. And it's great that you know the SOPs. It's really great you know the SOPs, but you gotta include the guy that's with you. You gotta make sure he's on board with everything. And I've also been that guy. I've also been that guy who's 5-10 steps ahead. And maybe the captain is not quite as confident, and I've been with some captains who aren't. Maybe it's not that they're not confident, but they're more slower and more methodical. They need to take their time and think about stuff as they're doing it, which is fine. But if you're 5 or 10 steps ahead, it can really throw somebody off if they're someone who's slow and methodical. Like, I'm not thinking that far ahead. I need to get through these first few steps before I move on to that step up there that you're on. And if you leave them too far behind, again, you're not in the same space. The two people in the front of the airplane need to very much be in the same mental space to make sure that they can work together and support each other as much as possible. All right. I'm going to get there shortly here. I'm just going to go and do some external shots here for the title card if I can, so let me just take myself away for a second here. Kind of like it with the super zoom in too, that's kind of nice. That is a kind of, right there was just a good angle right off the bat without even trying anything. Maybe just zoom it out one notch there. It is a nice looking model, I do enjoy. Hand down ever so slightly here, so it's more centered because kind of keep the top and the bottom off there. Can't quite get it to center. Just wants to go right past center every time. Oh well. You really can see the flattened engine bottoms here on the NG series. They really had to flatten those cowls just to fit the engines underneath those wings. Without making the landing gear longer on the NG series. I wonder if I can do it better this way. Follow aircraft. Wow. How far is that drone gonna have to fly to catch up with me? It's all the way back in Los Angeles. Oh, I can't even do that. It's gonna take a year for it to catch up to us where we are here. How do I... That is so far behind us, it's not even funny. Oh, thanks Microsoft. Thanks Asobo for that. Now it's got to somehow recover and get back to 380, and then there's the change back again. Amazingly, it's not going to overspeed doing that, but son of a gun, and it's got to dive down again. Now, is that the drone camera? Is that no? That's the shooting camera. There are some nice showcase cameras. There it is. That's kind of what I was looking for there. Just perfectly centered. See the crew there. I don't even know where it is. It's somewhere in California. It should be following us, but... I don't even know what... I thought home key was the reset for that, but apparently it's not. I have to give up on that. Too bad. And there goes another Asobo glitch. We're flying along and suddenly severe turbulence. Okay. Let's get the seatbelt switch on for all of you lucky people back there, because apparently we are not going to fly a straight line today. Spacebar. Yeah, even Spacebar's not doing it. We're so far back there, it doesn't even know where we are. It's glitched. I don't even know. I'm not even going to worry about it right now. I was just going to try and take some external screenshots with it, and obviously that's not going to happen, so be it. Anywho. Eventually this thing will figure out what it's doing. Any chance of any ATC? Nothing? Nothing. Nothing. Nothing at all. Okay. So yeah, let's start setting up anyways. Let's start looking at some weather in Portland here. So I imagine there'll be at least a few people kind of maybe in the Portland area. Seattle's a very popular area. Portland... Nope, it's just us inbound. It's very quiet on the West Coast right now. There's a guy up in Vancouver, but otherwise all of North America is pretty quiet for ATC right now. There's a, looks like a Miami center, 1-2 ground controllers, a tower controller, and 2 terminal controllers, and that pretty much 3 terminal controllers, and that pretty much describes North America at this point. There's not a lot of people on there. Number 5 on the numpad resets the drone. All right, let's try that one. And then I'm going to give up. Ah, yes, you are right. Thank you. I knew there was a key. Wow. We're getting some good turbulence here, Sobo. Before I got into flight sim, I did not realize how important the Capt and F work together really was. It absolutely is, and it used to be that it was not a very, I won't say it wasn't a very good system, but more so before the era of CRM, the captain was revered as the person who does know the most. And it's not that there were fantastic captains back in the day as well, people who understood that it was a team effort, that didn't care about their ego. It was a team effort to get the job done, and so that, you know, it was some people it was really good to work with, but there used to be a whole lot of people that that captains that were more about their ego than about the team. And I think this is probably more a civilian thing. I think the military very much had the team idea very kind of well ingrained. Like, yes, it is, at the end of the day, it's a command hierarchy, but that doesn't mean you can't take input from your subordinates. In fact, you need to take input from your subordinates because it's impossible to know it all. That's why you have subordinates, so that they can help with not just ideas but also just information. But again, you would end up with the same kind of people who their position was more about ego than about responsibility. It's very much people have become very aware now of how important that teamwork is. Some people kind of naturally came to it. Other people didn't come to it so naturally and had to kind of be told, this is what's important. But yeah, it really is. It's truly a team effort. You need both guys working together on the same page to get the job done properly. One guy could probably do it, but chances are that one person's going to miss stuff. You get two people, and then the nice thing about these airlines, you're changing constantly who you're working with, is that you get all sorts of different experiences coming together. So, the experience you had over the last year is going to be very different than the experience that I had over the last year with various different flights. Different things happened, different things went wrong, so you can draw on that experience. Things that got one person, maybe another person doesn't even know about because they've never done that thing. They've never seen that, so they don't know what to do in that occasion, whereas the first person has seen it. So bringing in two very different experience sets is really good for kind of just bringing two different perspectives on operating the aircraft. It's so essential to have that good communication. When that communication shuts down, the performance of the crew really suffers as a whole. Communication is so important. All right, I think it's time to start setting up here. So the winds in Portland are 200 at 10. Few at 900, scattered 6,000. So it turned into a pretty nice morning in Portland. It was a little cloudier earlier, but it looks pretty good right now. So let's see here. Yeah, good example was the crash in SFO. Nobody spoke up or took charge at a critical time. Yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly what can happen. You see stuff unfolding badly, you try and you don't feel like you could talk about it. They didn't have an open communication policy in the flight deck, really. I mean, it wasn't necessarily policy. A lot of times the policies are just they're implicit. You don't say, "Hey, I've got an open flight deck policy," but just by the way you talk to people and right off the bat and introduce yourself and deal with people, they know whether or not you have an open flight deck policy. All right, so for Portland, 10 left for arrival sounds very reasonable, and I need a gate as well for arrival. Yeah, I'll do that first. While I'm thinking about it here, I pulled up a gate for a departure, and I forgot to even look at the arrival gate. So let's do this. So just looking it up on my other device over here. And that one's on the way. That's the one I was looking at before. So they are going to gate Charlie 10 when they get to Portland. So let's pull up some information here for... Nope, that's SeaTac. Oops, I clicked the wrong one there. Let's pull up Portland here. Anyways, I can just click on this, and that pulls up Portland. So I've got the Timbers arrival. That's already in there. We are going to plan the ILS 10 left, so let's pin that one. And the airport info's in there. I don't think the gates are on there, though, so... Gate Charlie 10. Charlie 10. So it's on the inside. And I have the flight beam Portland. I feel like there might be an aircraft parked on this gate, but we'll try it anyways. We'll see if we can get it. If not, we'll park at one of the other gates along here. Charlie 8, Charlie 12, Charlie 14, one of those gates there. So we'll pin that one as well, because that's also a useful one to have. Alright, so I can't do a landing performance calculation because I don't have a calculator tool. I could do it straight out of the manual. I could actually open the performance section of the FCOM and actually crunch the numbers, and I think I have done it once or twice in the past. But I'll look at this and I'm going to say right off the bat, we have 11,000 feet 9,800 feet on 10 left here in Portland. That's a lot of runway. I think we're going to be okay. Now, do we do 10 left or do we do 10 right for arrival? Maybe we should do 10 right for arrival. Let's do this. Before I even look at that, let's be smart. Let's look at the NOTAMs. Just make sure that we have both ILSs we want here. So go past Los Angeles, Portland. Off between 0 through 20 right, close. So runways. Close Wednesday. Today is not Wednesday. 0322121. Okay, so no problems there. And approach if we do 10 right, ILS 10 right, special authorization. That's not what we're going to do. We're not going to get 2 and 3. 10 right, 10 right, 10 right, 10 right. I don't see too much for 10 right. Special authorizations, Cat 2s. Okay, good. So, yeah, let's change it up. Let's go to the ILS 10 right because that gets us a bit of a shorter taxi in. I've never been to Portland. From what I recall from the ATC, I think they like to depart 10 left because it's a little bit of a shorter taxi out to 10 left. So 10 right's kind of a nicer arrival runway because wherever you roll off is closer to the terminal. So in this configuration, I think 10 right should be the arrival runway. So we're going to use 10 right. Just going to have a look at the notes around here. Make sure nothing's really going to apply to us here. Tango. None of these really apply to us. Most of these apply to aircraft with big wingspans. Ours is less than 118 feet. I don't see any reason why we can't park here. No, I see nothing on there. All right, perfect. So let's just put up some arrival information. So we got a we got an 11,000 foot runway. We can do a flat 30 landing just fine. Be a non-issue. Flap 30, 131 knots for VREF, and let's just check over this whole thing and make sure it's all in there before we actually do the briefing. That way the briefing actually goes a little faster. So we're on our way to Spencer. So we're going to join this arrival at Spencer, Jester, Moxie above 240, Portal at 270 between 240 and 11,000, Timbers at 270 above 11,000, Vance at 250 between 11 and 15, Flower 9 to 7. And then for the 10s, we got to go off this way. Full 9 to 7. Sail 8 to 6. And Micro 210 at 5,000. Then after that, we do Micro Brew Pub. So Micro Brew Pub. And at some point, we're going to be in a vector. We're going to get over towards 10 right. And this one doesn't have specifications. Some of them specify which ones are preferred. So speed restriction, turbojet aircraft descending via Mach number until intercepting 280 knots, maintain 280 knots and slow by the start. So we're going to have to set that in here in a second. Radar required, DDR, GPS required, RNF1, city to Timbers transition. Okay, non-GPS 10 left, right, no, caution, no. Okay, so there's no preferred. Some of them have a expect this runway for coming on this star, but this one doesn't. So we'll set up 10 right. I don't think I changed that yet, so let's set up 10 right. First of all here. Come on, find the button. There it is. Alright, so we're still on the Timbers 2, 10 both, 10 right. And for descent, it wants 280 knots. Mach number until intercepting 280 knots. So we'll do it properly here. Target is 0.799, intercepting 280 knots. So that'll adjust our descent profile to meet that. Perfect. 16, 20, 25 minutes till our top of descent, 200 miles. Beautiful. Alright, so otherwise that's all in there. And we're going to go vectors around for an ILS to runway 10, not 10 left, we said 10 right. ILS runway 10 right. There we go. And because of the terrain, yeah, I am going to throw the scapo transition on there. Scapo. So ILS 10 right it is. We are going to throw that scapo transition on there, so we will have that fixed in there. So after the discon, vector leg there, we got scapo, Heron, and Powell's for runway 10 right. Beautiful. If we do the missed approach, it's 1,100 feet, climbing right turn 5,000 outbound on the BTG VOR radial 160 to the Mules intersection and hold at Mules. Climb and hold at 5,000. It's fine. Alright, so right turn, hold at Mules. And yeah, let's get some other stuff in here. So it's 110.5, 103. .5. And that was what was already tuned in there. That's funny. 103. Set course on your side, 103. Set course on your side, 103.
103. Set.
There he goes. Set. ILS 224. Minimums for this are going to be 224. Alright, beautiful. I think we got everything set up. And we got a raid. I didn't even notice. Here I am doing my thing. Yeah, so Uncle Wiki said, as captain, I would make everything very clear from the get-go. Do not speak unless you're spoken to. I don't care what your name is, but if you hear FO, I'm speaking to you. Do you understand, FO? I love it. 104th Maverick, thank you for the raid. I didn't even see that there. I'm sitting here setting up my arrival, focused on what I'm doing, didn't even notice all this. So welcome everybody to the channel. We are getting just about ready to start our descent into Portland here. We're about 20 minutes away from starting our descent into Portland here in the 737. So we're just getting ourselves all set up, getting ready to do an approach briefing. So thank you guys all for watching, and I hope you like what you're seeing here. I'd like to try and keep this as realistic as possible. So I keep the small chat mostly to the crews and the small talk to the crews, and yeah, we had a pretty good chat so far today about captains and what captains should and should not do. Hence Uncle Wiki's comment there about talking to the FO. You will not speak unless you're spoken to. That's going to shut down everything. I don't think I want to go do any more shared flight deck flights with you there, Uncle Wiki. All those Dash 8 shared flight decks we used to do, that's it. That era is done. All right. Yeah. You're missing out. Yeah, I am. I miss it. You know, it's funny, actually. Today, just this morning, I got an email popped up from Just Flight that the Majestic Q400 has been updated again, and I really just don't care. I do, but I don't. I just don't even want to open up P3D anymore. The graphics are just not good enough for me to really be able to fly it anymore. So I'm looking so forward to Majestic getting the Dash into MSFS. And oh, we are going to have fun when that happens again, because that is a great airplane. Tons of fun to fly. But I'm waiting. I'm not doing anything until it gets into MSFS now with the Dash 8. Unfortunately, it's a great airplane. I'm also looking forward to the ATR. I think that'll also be a really fun airplane in MSFS as well. Anywho, let's do this.
Check.
You have control.
I have control.
Are you ready for the approach briefing?
Go ahead.
And actually, while I think about this, before I even talk to this guy, I'm just going to set up the approach briefing stuff here. So flaps 30 bleeds on. Drive runway, auto brake, 2 sounds fine. Single engine taxi, no. We're going to a gate. APUs, pretty quick taxi ends and get the after landing. Final sector, no. Minimum altitude, what do we say? 224. And just approach altitude 5,000, and I didn't see the FAF altitude. So let's just bring that up really quickly again. Set this guy up here, and then why are they even bothering with P3D? So frustrating. I know, and I didn't even read what the update was. It probably was like bug fixes. It probably was, I don't know if it was extra features or not. They only just kind of went into it. And here's the thing too, like, you know, developers have had to sort of sit on the fence between the two, because there is still a hardcore P3D fan base. It's growing smaller by the day, and unfortunately they don't have enough they don't have a big enough, you know, fan base influence to really support the developers fully anymore, and that's unfortunate. We're going to add the ILS to 10 right to my route here. That's really unfortunate that they are not, you know, that these developers, that they invested all this time and money and effort into all these P3D products, and a lot of it's being lost to time now because there's just not enough support for it. But at the end of the day, too, like 2,000 for Powell's. Yeah, I think this is where the future is, unless P3D can get their graphics up here. Like, it really is. Like, P3D was great because it ran really well and smoothly for the most part. Yeah, and I did take the 4.7 out a while back, a couple months ago. I fired up P3D and I took the 4.7 out just for fun because I haven't flown the 4.7 in a long time, and I love that airplane. But yeah, then you go back in P3D and you're running through it and you're like, yeah, I mean, you know, GSX and all that stuff, it adds up and it makes a great immersive experience, but it's just not good enough. I hate to say it, but it's just not good enough to really kind of compare. I can fly airliners here, and this is just, it's so much more immersive when the scenery is this much more realistic. So, anywho, yes, our approach briefing that I promised 5 minutes ago before I started ranting about something else. All right. So today we're flying the Timbers 2 RNAV arrival into Portland, Oregon. It's an RNAV Star 10-2 Delta. So notes, nothing special really in the notes, standard equipment notes. We do have the speed restriction, turbojet aircraft descend via Mach number until intercepting 280, maintain 280 until slowed by the star. I do have 280 programmed in there along with our pre-programmed Mach number, so it'll slow to 280 knots and then follow the star speeds. From Timbers, track 3048 to Vance, track 348 to Flower, and then for 10 left and right, Flower, track 323 to full, track 323 to sail, track 323 to micro, track 323 to expect. To expect radar vectors to, sorry, then on track 305 to expect radar vectors to approach course. So, anyways, it's all in there. I've checked it all. It's already all published in the box. And, yeah, the approach today, if I can pull it up here, is the, I don't know why it's got the Cat 2 on here. I didn't mean to put the Cat 2 up there. Can I just remove that one? Or do I have to unpin it? Now it won't load because I click something. Ah, you gotta be kidding me. Darn you, darn you, darn you. Wow, it does not want to do this at all. Okay. Let's fire this Navigraph charts up one more time and see if I can get it to come up here. Every once in a while this will happen. It'll just sort of hang up. I need the 777 for MSFS. Yeah, don't we all? We all need that, that's for sure. Okay, let's do it this way too. See if I force it as an overlay, see if it'll load that way. Aha! It loaded as an overlay. Good enough for me. Especially if I increase to 100%. That's not really an overlay anymore. Alright, so we're doing the ILS to runway 10 right is the plan. Plane 11-2. 110.5 and 103 the inbound course. So we do have 110.5 on nav 1 and nav 2. 103 is set both sides. Glide slope check height at Powell's, the ILS DA of 224. We've got that set. Touchdown zone for 10 right, 24 feet. We do have 50 feet for the field elevation. That works. MSA is highest northeast of the battleground VOR, which is northeast, so we should be into the 3,400 foot MSA the whole time here. Once we're within 25 miles of BTG. Missed approach is to climb to 1,100 feet, then a climbing right turn to 5,000 outbound on the BTG VOR 160 the Mules intersection and hold. Continue climb and hold to 5,000 if required. Sometimes approach is authorized. VGSI ILS glide path not coincident. We've got a 3-degree glide slope. ALSF2 lighting. Pappy's on the right. RVR 1,800 or half mile. We got VMC kind of day happening in Portland, so that should not be a problem. And yeah, I think the one thing I was thinking about here is I might throw up the fix for Battleground here just to show me what the MSA is. So if I can just go back to this for 1 second here, just see what the and actually there's the MSA anyway. So once we pass full, we're already on the MSA. So once we pass full, we're good down to the MSA. Okay, so I won't even bother drawing it up on the screen. I was going to put a fix info and put a circle up, but we don't even need to do that. It's pretty obvious where that will be well within that MSA once we're on that downwind leg there. So once we land in Portland on 10 right, it's a convenient left turn off the runway. I'm expecting we're going to exit probably around Bravo Bravo 4, Bravo 5, something like that. The assigned gate's Charlie 10, so we're just going to have to go around the terminal into Charlie 10 here. We'll make sure we set up the GSX to marshal us in, and if that gate's occupied by a static aircraft, we'll just head to one of the gates on either side. Terrain is a bit of an issue around Portland. There is higher terrain, especially more to the north and the south, but even on the south on the way in, we are going to have some terrain. So I do have terrain up right now on the ND, so that should draw as we go down there. And we'll keep an eye on that. As long as we respect the MSAs as well, that should keep us clear of all the terrain. Weather, again, going back to my Metar, I had, Portland Tower's online. Haha! Good times. I might change our briefing here, but Portland Tower's online. I'll get the ATIS here in a second. Yeah, few at 900, broke at 37. We shouldn't need the NTIs for the arrival, and yeah, I don't expect I don't anticipate too much problem finding the runway. Operational, no real NOTAMs that affect the approach process, no MELs on the aircraft, no failures or anything at this point. Although that being said, with that many people watching still, I think we might try to fail something here and deal with the failure. So let me just finish this approach briefing real quick here. The only other thing I want to talk about was just fuel. 11.1, we needed like 4.7, 4.8, I think, to bug out to either Portland or either Seattle or Eugene. So let's just check the weather in Seattle here. Just a quick call up with the Metar here. 7 miles scattered at 1600. We can turn tail for Seattle pretty easily. So we've got 5 tons of extra fuel. We can hang out for probably a good hour or more and do a couple of go-arounds without too much issue. So let me just pull up the ATIS in Portland here. But the other thing I'm going to do, because I got so many of you guys watching here, just to keep it interesting and fun, is we're going to go in here and just crank up the failures, crank up the random failures. So all systems, random event failures should be on. And I'm going to crank it up to how many people are watching right now? I got 41 people watching right now, so that's what I'm going to put in here. That should probably trigger something this hour. 41. However, I'm going to limit it to 1 event. Whatever happens, happens. All right, information Sierra here in Portland, 188.8, 10 miles, fuel at 900, 2975 on the meter, and actually we should probably set that altimeter now, preset that so it's ready to go. $2,975. There we go. And now that's preset and all ready to go. ILS 10 right, simultaneous 10 left approaches. So ILS runway 10 right, simultaneous ILS runway 10 left approaches in use, departing 10 left and 10 right. RNAV approach available on request. Push back onto taxiways Tango and Kilo. Request ATC clearance, NOTAMs, intentional aircraft. Caution for increased bird activity. And that's it. So yeah, so 10 right or left. Seems like 10 right is the preferred approach, which is what we got, so that's perfect. We are all set up. Hopefully something will fail here interesting in the descent and kind of keep the stream interesting going on here. And then we'll have to see if there's anybody interesting to raid once we get there, because yeah, we're just doing the one leg today. That's all I really have time for. The next leg is it's a decently long one. It's back down to San Francisco, so it's another hour-and-a-half flight. I don't have time to do that one today. Got to try and fix my laptop later today, so yeah, we'll stick with this, but keep that in mind, guys. Stick with me, and if you want to do a channel raid at the end of this stream, I am all game. Just let me know what channel you guys like. I'll be keeping an eye open for the ones that I like, but pardon me, I'm starting to run out of voice here. And I think what I need to do is just quickly replenish my coffee. So if you guys will indulge me and give me 3 minutes here. Can't wait for the compass light failure. Yes, that's the one that fails all the time. The compass light. Didn't even notice it because it's daytime. We don't have the compass light on. All right. Yeah, I'm just going to step away for 2 minutes, guys. I'm just going to go refill my coffee cup just to help keep my voice intact, and then we'll hopefully get something interesting here on the descent, and we should be top and drop here, 80 miles, so probably about 10 minutes here. So yeah, just give me 2 minutes, guys. I'll be right back with you. If you want to think of some stuff to ask in the chat while we're waiting for this failure to happen, please do, and I'll answer it as soon as I get back here. Just give me 2 minutes. All right. I don't think that was even 2 minutes. That was like 60 seconds. I guess I should do this. I have control.
You have control.
Any questions? He's not going to answer me for a minute now, because now that makes him do his descent procedure. So he won't respond to that for a minute. So it looks like nothing happened while I was gone. The only reason the yellow light came on there for a second was just because the guy was testing, the FS2 crew was testing the recall to make sure nothing's in there. All right. So that will probably make something happen in this descent. Descent checklist.
Descent checklist. Pressurization. Landing altitude is 50 feet. Recall. Checked. Auto brake. Level 2. Landing data.
VREF 130. Minimums 224 feet.
VREF 130. Minimums 224 feet. Approach briefing.
Completed.
Descent checklist complete.
It'll be interesting if the engine fails just as we turn final. I am not necessarily very up on my 737 procedures. G Cook Scotland, hey, welcome back to the stream. We got a whole bunch of people watching now, so I've got this failures cranked up. I'm waiting for something to happen now. And for those of you guys that are watching the stream that are new to my channel, I did the same thing. I got a really good raid from, I think it was from Nomad Aviator, like 2 streams ago. So it disappeared off my Twitch stream, but if you go to my YouTube channel, which is the same, youtube.com/CaptainNabs, you'll find I post all my streams there a couple days after they air. So yeah, you go back two streams ago, and we had a major failure occur in cruise down to we were heading down to Guadalajara, and we had a major failure. We lost our DC standby bus. So we lost the 3 screens here on the left. We lost the captain's PFD, the captain's ND, and the engine display here. And so we had only the 3 screens on the right, and nothing you can do can reset that in flight. Once there's a bus fault, that's it. It's the bus is not possible to be energized until maintenance has a look at it. So I had to end up landing from the right seat. I had to fly the airplane, do the briefing, run the checklist, try and figure out what I was doing here. And you know what I'm thinking I should do here, actually. One thing I'm thinking about, and I'm not... I'm going to try and be a little bit smart here, as I'm pretty sure I don't have my 737 QRH handy, so when something fails, I'm going to need that. So give me 1 second. I'm going to go reach over here and grab it. So I've got it when something fails here shortly. I always try to keep my office relatively neat. Try to put stuff away when I'm done with it, put my books back on the shelf. There's Spencer, so let's just do a quick fuel check here as well, because I try to keep the stream as professional as I can. Within reason and within the limitations of, you know, Microsoft Flight Simulator and everything, I do try to keep this as realistic as possible. So even the flight log is on here. So we're logging the flight log here. So we just passed Spencer. It's time 16:13. Lido strikes again. And then SimBrief strikes again, like bang on. The timing is perfect, and fuel 10.3. We are up just a little bit on the fuel there. I think we didn't quite burn as much. We're up again 200 kilos, 200 pounds, same as before. So I think we didn't quite burn as much fuel in the taxi out. So it's been very consistent. And this is the thing I love about SimBrief, is the accuracy of these numbers. This is all generated by SimBrief. Look at the accuracy, like the flight planning, the winds, and everything. It's so precise. It's down to the minute. There's no variation, and we are right on the schedule. SimBrief has said we should be able to fly. Their performance profile is extremely precise for certain aircraft, anyways. And the 737 is one of those ones. Again, the fuel burn, like we are bang on the fuel burn here. Like we were up 200 pounds before, and over here we're up 400 pounds. So we're off a little bit on the fuel burn, but still very much within reason. Better than I could do just off the top of my head. So I'm always impressed with SimBrief and the reliability of the numbers there, the accuracy of the numbers in SimBrief. Alright, I'm just going to pull up the star here, because what's the bottom altitude on the star? Since there's no ATC for the terminal, we're just going to clear ourselves all the way to the bottom of the star. It is 5,000. Yeah, it is 5,000 there at micro. So we're just going to go ahead and set that bottom altitude right off the bat here, all the way down to 5,000 feet. We're in VNAV path mode, so it's going to follow it all the way down, assuming nothing fails. I've got failures turned up as high as I can. Something will fail at some point, and it was pretty good. Like, I have to say, that other one that I did was shocking. and not shocking in like a bad way, but just the suddenness of it. Just all of a sudden you're flying along. I was talking about something, and boom, 1, 2, 3 screens blank. I was like, oh, something just happened. So it was a good one. But yeah, I have my trusty QRH here. So when something does fail, I am ready. I made this thing myself when I started flying the PMDG 737. When I saw that they had the actual QRH and you actually had to follow the procedures in it, I hate doing it as a PDF. It's just something very realistic and tactile about pulling out a QRH, a book, and flipping through it and finding the procedures and reading it in the book. So it took me a long time. I had to print this all out. I cut all the pages in half. I got it actually bound. I paid to have it bound. Was it the last time it was a flying the flying Fabio that read? Yeah, I honestly couldn't remember. I know he did. I can't remember if it was that time. It was one of these times anyways, but yeah. I want a hydrologic failure. Okay. If we have a failure of the groundwater system in our aircraft, then I'm sure I will run that procedure in the checklist. But I think hydraulic would be an interesting one. It would definitely require some consideration, some landing distance calculations potentially, because hydraulics is always a good one. You start to lose redundancy in the hydraulic system. It's the stopping power of the aircraft is one of the big issues. It's controllability, but also stopping power. When you start to lose brakes, spoilers, and reversers, all that stuff is hydraulically powered. So hydraulics are usually some of the worst failures you can have in an aircraft. Electrical failures, depending on the nature of the electrical failure, usually aren't too bad unless they take out some of the redundancy and take out your autopilot. That's when the electrical ones really start to become annoying. But yeah, hydraulics are probably some of the worst. Next to engine failures and fires and things like that, hydraulic failures, some of the worst failures you can have because it's... because it affects especially your stopping distance. You really have to make good stopping calculations because there's so many multiple stopping systems that require the hydraulics to function. Spoilers, brakes, and thrust reversers usually all require the hydraulic system to work properly. So it'll be interesting anyways. Yeah, you never know what's going to happen though. It's funny actually because just the other day let's see, was it yesterday? Oh, it was yesterday, wasn't it? Yeah, felt like 2 days ago because I did a red eye the other day, so I kind of slept a whole bunch of time and then got up again. But my father was actually on a flight just the other day, and they ended up taking off and having to return because they had indication that the cargo door was open shortly after takeoff. So they ended up circling back and landing again, like about a half an hour later, and went back to the gate and had a multiple hour delay waiting for a replacement aircraft. They took a look at the airplane and said, yeah, it's not going to be it's not going to be an easy fix. We're going to have to get a new airplane. So, is he a pilot in real life? Yeah. Can you verify this for us? Yeah, the answer is yeah. I do fly in real life, so I try to bring my real world perspective as much as possible to this, and I try to operate the aircraft as realistically as possible. It's kind of my bit. I know some people kind of tend to do things a little bit more fun, and I like to have a little bit of fun on stream, but I try to keep it, certainly the operation, as professional as possible here. So we're just coming up to our top of descent point here. We got 5,000 feet set for our bottom altitude. We are in BNAV pass, so it's going to start down shortly and follow that profile all the way down. Yeah. So I thought that was really kind of amusing, but I chatted with him quite a bit during the whole thing, during his delay until they got going eventually to the destination. But he complimented everybody on their professionalism. Never was concerned, and as much as possible, everyone's very forthcoming with the information. They when they didn't know, and this is the thing that I've seen his cosplay uniform was realistic. G Cook Scotland, not anymore. I was an Embraer E175 pilot for 6 years. I am not anymore an Embraer pilot. Yeah. But yeah, that was the one thing my father commented on, was how professional everything was. When they got back to the gate, they just said, everyone just stay in your seats for now. We're not sure what the outcome is yet. So we're not sure if the aircraft is going to be easily fixable, or if this is something where they're going to have to take a little longer with it. We might have to switch airplanes, but just sit tight and we'll let you know as soon as we do. And that's the most important thing, is to pass along information when you have it. And you know, and realize that not everyone's going to have information all the time. And I'm okay with that as a passenger, and in any business. I can take bad news. Please give me the bad news. Be realistic. Don't give me promises that you're not gonna be able to fulfill. I hate that. I hate that so much. Tell me, oh yeah, the hotel shuttle is going to be there in 5 minutes, when really it's not going to be there for half an hour. And you know that to a certainty. You know that, but you just don't want to give anybody bad news. Just tell me right up front. I'd much rather have the bad news up front. Tell me what's going on, and we can deal with it. There's retard. Rather than wait till wait till long after the fact and then tell me, oh yeah, no, it's not coming. The other day, about a month ago, we had a taxi service that they kept telling us that your taxi's going to be there in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes away. It's going to be there in 5 minutes. An hour later, we're calling them back for like the 5th time, like it's still not here. Like, where is it? Why is it not here? And that sort of thing really blows me away. Auto thrust armed. So yeah, I hate that. And that was one thing that my father commented on, was just he felt like they communicated very well, as much as they knew at the time, and when what did become available, they passed it on pretty quickly. So for example, when they found out they were going to substitute airplanes, apparently all the passengers knew before the crew knew, because they all got a notification on their phone that told them that they were changing airplanes before the crew even knew. And sometimes that is the case. Sometimes the flight crew does not know what's happening. The managers and the systems managers are all kind of making choices about swapping airplanes and things like that, and maintenance issues before they ever, and the decisions are made, and they're saved in the system. And oftentimes the passengers, because all the notification systems are all connected into the airline's computers, the passengers know before the crew gets told. The crew doesn't find out because they're not usually plugged into that system. They get told usually over the radio by the station operations, or maybe by their dispatcher by a phone call, what's happening. So oftentimes the crew doesn't know, and that's why they don't pass on the information, because they just honestly don't know. They wish they did. I try to read the chat as much as I can. If it gets busy, I don't. I will be the first to admit that I don't have the chat up here on my screen in front of me. I have it on my second screen, and I often sometimes pull other stuff up on the second screen and cover up the chat too, not intentionally, but just because I'm doing stuff. So yeah, I try to keep up with the chat here. What do I fly now? I do not fly the 737 anymore. I fly the other narrow body now. I am now a bus driver, and it's a fun airplane. I like that airplane, and I would love to take the Phoenix up and do it on stream, but my computer is not good enough right now to take the Phoenix up flying on stream with the overhead it needs for the screens and the stream. It's just not happening. But as I said before a couple streams ago, and I keep saying it, and I'm hoping that one of these days, the Phoenix version 2 is going to release. So there's got to be one of two things that's got to happen for me to start streaming the Phoenix, and that is either version 2 of the Phoenix with performance improvements that they're promising, it releases, and it's good enough that I can run it and my streaming software side by side, or I have to get a better graphics card, which is kind of in the offing for later this year. I'm slowly saving money, so every time you guys watch this channel, thank you, because you are slowly adding the pennies to my graphics card fund, little by little. Eventually, it's not a terrible graphics card, but it's a 1060. It's getting long in the tooth. It runs Microsoft Flight Simulator surprisingly well for being a fairly old graphics card now, and it does a decent job of it. But I can't. The Phoenix, just with the extra overhead it needs to run all those screens, just does not keep up with it. Take my 2 cents. Yes, thank you. And yes, exactly. Yeah. Don't waste my time. Tell me what I need to know. I just hate being told straight up lies when you know it's not true. If you know something's not true, just tell me. I'm a big grown up. I can take bad news. If it's going to be 20 minutes for a taxi because of one thing or another, you're short on shift or whatever, it's fine. Tell me honestly. But there's nothing worse than standing out front of the airport for an hour, with your hat on, your mitts on, trying to stay warm, wondering when the taxi's going to show up when it doesn't show up for an hour. Tell me it's going to be 20 minutes. I'll go wait inside the airport for 15 minutes and I'll come out, 5 minutes before it's supposed to show up. But yeah, that really, really bugged me that night, because they kept on. We called back like 5 or 6 times. They hung up on us like twice, but every time it was like, oh yeah, no, he's 5 minutes away. Like you said that 30 minutes ago, 40 minutes ago. You've lost all credibility here, really, with this. At the end of the day, like, I don't even know why we're calling, because you have zero credibility. And that's just it. When you tell people outright lies and they find them out, then you lose all your credibility. So as a captain, I hated telling people falsehoods. One that bugged me back in the day was when we knew we weren't going to make curfew at our home airport, and we would have to divert to another airport. And the policy of the airline was not to tell people we were planning to divert. It's like, it's one thing if you think you can make curfew and it's going to be tight, maybe you'll make it, maybe you won't, and you're trying. But it's another thing when you know you're going to be there an hour after curfew, you're not going to be allowed to land, period. No question. Not going to be allowed to land. You're going to divert somewhere. It's just a question of where. But don't tell the passengers till you get going. I despise that policy. I absolutely despise that policy. If you know the truth, tell people the truth. That one really bugged me. Hayden UK, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, that sort of thing really kind of got to me. Was telling people that falsehood. That's not me. I'm not that person, because I hate being on the other side of that coin and being told lies. So I do my best to tell the truth to people when I know it, to the best of my knowledge, to the best of my judgment. I don't always know everything. Certainly when I'm sitting up front, I don't always know everything. I don't always have all the information. But I do try to tell people, what I do know when I do know it. So I'm just looking at this cloud out here that's in front of us, this little fuzzy cloud out here, and now it's as good a time as any to get that engine anti-ice on. So there it goes, because we've got a TAT still of -20. Yeah, it bugs me all the time when people do that. So yeah, I try not to be that person. I try to be as informative as I can without being overly so. And then there's the other side of it too, where there's almost too much information sometimes. And it does get a bit annoying, but we're required to do it. It's pretty much every company now has a policy, and it's a legal obligation now in a lot of cases to tell passengers every 30 minutes during a delay what's happening. And oftentimes it's as simple as, yeah, we're not leaving for another 30 minutes. We're not leaving still until the time we had said, because there's a ground stop program for Newark, so we're not leaving until this time. It's been 30 minutes. There's been no change. Thank you for your attention. And sometimes it's a little that, and you're interrupting people. They're watching the movie or whatever on the screens. It's like, I'm legally required to tell you this. I hate doing it every 30 minutes sometimes when there's nothing to say, but it is a legal requirement that we have to keep people informed of what's going on. So the passenger rights legislation in North America has gotten a lot more strict in the last couple of years. It was about 4 or 5 years ago, I think. Both the U.S. and Canada kind of really got on board with updating their legislation, and there's things to like about it. And I mean, again, it comes down to making sure people are informed, making sure people are not being held captive, because there was that incident that happened in Ottawa with 2 Transat flights. Or was it Sunwing? I'm pretty sure it was Transat. Where there were 2 flights that landed in Ottawa, diverted from, I think, Toronto or Montreal, and landed in Ottawa. Didn't have a gate. There was no gates available, so they're just sitting there parked off gate for like 8 hours, waiting for a chance to go and continue on. And there's no food left. Air conditioning's not really working very well. Like, it's getting hot. It's summer. Sadly, and I feel for these crews, because oftentimes there is no choice. There's literally no gate available. It happened just 4 months ago in Vancouver. Plane lands from Phoenix at 11 p.m. They don't get a gate till 10 a.m. the next morning, because there were literally no gates available. Every gate had an airplane parked at it, and it was almost impossible for them to move the airplanes around because of the amount of snow that had fallen. There was not enough crews to move any airplanes, so they sat on the airplane all night, and it's not something anybody wants to do by any means. Sometimes your hands are tied by the way the business works, and there's no other option. There's no possibility. So I felt bad for that crew when I heard about that. It's like, that's an incredibly long amount of time to be sitting on an airplane. It's a 4-hour flight, and you end up spending 18 hours on the airplane. Ridiculous amount of time. I felt so bad for those guys. Just gonna have a quick look at that. That's by here. PSC approach. That's not Portland approach, right? I just want to make sure I'm not flying into. No, PSC is Pasco Tri-Cities, Washington. So okay, that's not good. That's not Portland approach. All right, and there goes transition. Transition set 2975 inches.
Two, 9, 7, 5, set, passing, 16,800. Now.
Very good. Yeah, and it was such a bad situation with those guys. But you don't. Yeah, I mean, like, your hands are tied. Like, there's literally physically there is no other place to go. They were trying to get them air stairs, but it was so much snow had fallen in. Vancouver does not deal with snow very well, and there was, I think, 37 centimeters of snow fell that night in Vancouver, which is like that is more than they normally get in an entire winter done in one night. So it was a large amount of snow. The airport was not equipped to handle it. People there are not used to dealing with it. you know, you go to other places where they're used to dealing with it, and it's a little bit better. You know, people know how to drive in it, and they know how to, you know, clear it and move it away and that sort of thing. But Vancouver, it's such an outlier type of event that you really couldn't kind of plan on it. And the next day was no better. I came back to the airport the next day, and the operation was no better. It was just grinding along. It's super slow because people couldn't even make it to work. Like, when that much snow falls in Vancouver, nobody has a car with snow tires. So half the people didn't even make it to work that day. And then the other half are working at less than half their normal pace because of the amount of snow that's on the ground. So it's, you know, your hands are kind of tied. It really kind of sucks in this business to be the crews, and you're often at the mercy of everybody else. You know, you have command of your aircraft, but you need more than just your airplane. You need a ground crew, you need a gate, you need services. Not always easy to deal with. So it's a shame that passenger rights legislation had to come into play, but it did, and it's a shame that it's written the way it is because it doesn't give a whole lot of outs. The one difference with the American legislation is that if you get back to the gate in the U.S. after a delay, you get stuck on the tarmac for a departure delay, you go back to the gate, you can reset the clock. As long as you open the door and people have the opportunity to deplane if they want to, your 4-hour delay limit starts again when you close the door again. In Canada, the difference is that the limit in Canada is 3 hours, and there's no resetting it. When you leave the gate the first time, you have 3 hours to get airborne. If you can't get airborne in that 3 hours, you have to go back to the gate, and that is the end of the flight. The flight has to be canceled. That is the legal requirement. With one caveat that at the 3-hour mark, if the pilot command believes you're going to depart within 3:45, you can continue to wait till 3:45. But at the 3-hour mark, if you're not airborne after 3 hours of tarmac delay, the flight is canceled in Canada. That is the legal requirement. The airlines have no choice on that. Whereas in the U.S., if you go back to the gate, you can reset the timer. The time limit is 4 hours. You can reset the time limit every time you go back to the gate. That, I think, is a little bit of a smarter rewrite, because the whole point is you don't want people sitting in airplanes off gate for hours and hours with lavatories overflowing, no food, no drink, no air conditioning, nothing like that. You don't want that situation. So I think the way the Americans design their legislation is a little bit smarter than the way the Canadians design theirs. In Canada, it's just 3 hours, and that's it. Your flight is canceled if it's not done, if it's not gone in 3 hours. Doesn't leave a lot of kind of room for error, that sort of thing. All right, we're coming down to 10,000 feet here. Still nothing has failed. I had that dialed right up. I'm surprised nothing has failed. Or if something has failed, it failed in the background. It's not something that's affecting our flight directly. Because that's what happens in the Phoenix all the time. I do the random failure in the Phoenix all the time, and you know what failure gets inserted? APU fail. And then you don't notice it until you're cruising along, you go to start the APU and you get to your destination, and that's when you realize what the failure is. When you land at your destination, fire up the APU, and that's what failed. So maybe the APU has failed right now, but we're not going to find out until we get there. See, TAT's still +0, so we got to get to TAT +10 before we can turn off the engine. Anti-ice, coming down to 10,000. Speed's kind of hanging out there close to 250. I might give it just a little speed brake just to help her out. Just to make sure we're under that 250 knots at 10,000 feet there. Going to continue slowing to the next restriction. Approach checklist.
Approach checklist. Altimeters.
2975 inches.
10,000.
2975 set.
2975 set. Approach checklist completed. Cabin crew prepare for landing.
Oh, my voice is dying here. Do I fly in and out of Vancouver much? Not a whole lot. I'm not based there, so I have been there a few times, but I'm not based there, so I don't fly in and out of there all the time. It just happened to, just bad luck that I happened to be there during that epic snowstorm back in December. Just bad luck I was there that day. 2377. So Portland Tower is online. We're going to get 2377 ready to go here. There we go, 2377's ready, so we can swap it once we turn final. Yeah, just bad luck I was there that day. And then the kicker of the whole thing. So we weren't even supposed to stay in Vancouver. We were supposed to continue back onto Edmonton. And then we ended up canceling in Vancouver because the snow was so heavy we couldn't de-ice. And this was the problem too, was that part of the reason why Vancouver reached a gridlock state was because nobody could depart. There was no the snow was coming down so heavy that there was no holdover time available, even for Type 4 de-icing fluid. There was just literally, it would not last long enough to get you even to the runway. That's how hard the snow was coming down. So nobody could get de-iced, nobody could depart. But everyone kept landing. It was good enough. It was good enough. It wasn't. They were plowing the runways and sweeping the runways, and they were keeping them good enough that you could land on them. But nobody could take off all night long. So more and more planes just kept on landing in Vancouver, until the place was gridlocked because there were so many airplanes. There were more airplanes than there were possible parking spots at the airport. And there were planes just parked on the runways, waiting for a gate to eventually become available. And it took forever to get planes off the gate because of the amount of snow that had fallen on them and the slowness of the operations and people not coming to work. It just turned into a disaster. But then the kicker of the whole thing was that we went to the hotel in Vancouver, and then at 4 a.m. the fire alarm went off for an hour. And it's just like, oh my god, I just want to sleep. And it was an exhausting day, and instead we're sitting there listening to the fire alarm, and it was... Apparently some of the flight attendants said the next day, oh yeah, we just slept through it. I just rolled over and went back to sleep. I'm like, how could you sleep through that? Like, that was so loud. I got dressed and I went down to the lobby because I just, like, it's obviously not going off anytime soon. Better safe than sorry, and also just, I can't sleep anyways. So I might as well go down and see what's happening. So I went down and saw what was happening, and the fire department actually came in like 5 minutes, 10 minutes at most, and they were there. And 5-10 minutes, they had checked all the hotel and said, nope, there's no fire. But then it took them 40-something minutes to reset the fire alarm. They couldn't figure it out because there was multiple towers to the hotel, so they couldn't figure out which tower had triggered the fire alarm. So they were trying to reset all the systems, and they couldn't figure out which one to reset. They couldn't make it. They couldn't get the reset to go on all of them. So they spent like 40 minutes walking from building to building to building trying to reset the fire alarm so it stopped going off. It was like, oh my god, like an hour. Fortunately, it was just a deadhead flight home the next day. So otherwise, I would have probably booked off fatigue because it's an hour at 4 a.m. of your sleep. Like that's that's good valuable sleep time you're losing right there. All right, let's see what else we got here.
1,000 to level.
Thank you. Alright, so we got no radar controllers. We're going to be doing basically the self-vector here. And what did I say? It was 3,400 for the MSA, I believe? 3,500 for the MSA. So we can go down to 4,000 at this point. So I think once we get past micro there, we'll do 4,000. And then let's actually just see the approach to see where the... altitudes are here on the approach. So I should have kind of planned this out better in the cruise. You're so used to kind of having vectors, you don't really think about it until you're faced with the self-vector. Scapo's 4,000. Hearn is 3,100. So, yeah, we kind of almost need to get to Scapo. Well, no, we don't need to get to Scapo. We need to turn final somewhere approaching Hearn, 3,100. So about, say, 5 miles out from Hearn would be an appropriate point. So about halfway between Hearn and Scapo. If we join final 3,500 there, we should have no problem.
Okay, thanks. Captain, the cabin is secure.
That's +9. We're getting down there. So yeah, we'll just kind of, we'll follow this a little farther out. Yeah, once we get kind of basically to pub, we'll, here's the 210 knots restriction. Yeah, so once we get to pub, we'll kind of turn just past pub towards the final approach course on the self vector. You got to be careful with these self vectors in the mountains, because once you got to make sure you know what your MSAs are, what your safe altitudes are wherever you are. So here comes Brew. Gonna get ready to turn final. I don't think anything's gonna fail, Travis. If it's going to fail, it's failed silently in the background. Hold on, compass light. Yeah, maybe the compass light is out. Because, yeah, whatever it is, it's not failing today on us here. Alright, yeah, you know what? We're going to do speed intervention. We're going to keep the speed at 210 for now. We don't need to slow down just yet. Speed intervention, 210. FMC speed, LNAV, VNAV alt. Just keep it going just a little further here. Still looking good, 9.2 tons, reset MCP altitude. Yeah, we can go down to 3,500 now. Let's do level change. And our base leg heading for runway 10 will be 010. 90 degrees off. There it is, and that looks like a 90 degree track there. And we'll just go a little further up ahead here. It's not too bad though. There's some lower cloud, but it's definitely not solid IMC. It's not a solid overcast deck, so I have no doubt we'll see this airport once we get a little closer down here. So there goes Scapo.
1000 to level.
45 to 35, roger. Alright, that should be good enough. Let's do heading cell. And let's do a direct radial in. And it's 103. Alright, the TAT is 10 degrees, so I'm not going to turn the anti-ice off just quite yet. Flaps 1.
Speed checked.
Speed 190.
Flaps 1 set. Radio altimeter alive. Cabin crew, take your seats.
Alright, heading 070. We got VOR Loc, glide path armed, altiquire, MCP speed. And we are below the glide slope, so this is looking good. Flaps 5.
Speed checked.
Kind of coming out the bottom already here. Looking good, looking good.
Flaps 5 set.
You've willed the APU failure, haven't you? The Phoenix does it all the time. I do insert random failure in the Phoenix, and I must have had APU fails like 4 times now in the Phoenix. And there's tons and tons of failures in there, and yet the APU is what's failed like 4 times on me. Alright, so since we're below the glide path anyways, we'll just stay at 35. I won't even worry about getting down to 3100 here for Heron. Alright, so there is VOR Loc. Perfect. Go ahead and set the heading to the inbound course as well. And we're on final. Let's contact the tower now. Portland Tower, good morning. Alaska 1460 is on the ILS runway 10 right with information Sierra.
Alaska 1060, Portland Tower. Good morning. Wind 180 at 8, runway 10 right, clear to land.
10 right, clear to land, thank you very much. Alaska 1460. There's glide path. Alright, speed 170. It's a little dreary, but it's not terrible out here. Still just hovering at plus 10 here. And what's the SAT as well here? SAT is 6 degrees. You know what? I'd say that's good enough. We can take the engine anti-ice off at this point. I'm very skeptical we're going to pick up any kind of ice here with a TAT at plus 10 and the SAT's already at plus 6. Gear down, flap 15.
Speed checked. Gear down.
2500.
Flaps 15 set.
Alright, so VRS 135, VRS 130, VRS going to be 135. Flaps 25.
Speed checked. Flaps 25.
Flaps 30.
Speed checked. Flaps 30 set.
Alright. We did get glide path, so there's the missed approach altitude 5,000 feet set. Landing checklist.
Landing checklist. Engine start switches.
Continuous.
Speed brake.
Armed.
Landing gear.
Down.
Flaps. Final approach fix.
Flaps 30, green light.
Checked. Most approach altitude is set.
Flaps 30, green light.
Landing checklist completed.
Alright, nothing left to do. Cleared. Nothing left to do but land this thing. Looking pretty good. 10 right's right in front of us. Following the river down here. Beautiful scenery out here too. Just seeing the mountains off in the distance. It's a nice kind of lower area, but there are a few ridges of mountains around here too, so you do have to be a little bit careful here. That's why we got to make sure you know where your terrain is. Stick to your MSAs. If you don't know what a safe altitude is, stick to a higher altitude until you know for sure that you are within a safe area for a lower altitude. 100%. All right. Landing gear failure would be nice. Wow. Wow. You're just throwing some horrible karma out there. And I never noticed this. I've done the approach in here a couple times, but there's another airport right here, just on the far side here. Must be interested in doing circuits there when there's airplanes landing right over your head to go into Portland here. Huh. I never noticed that before. There's another airport right there.
1,000.
All right, we are visual.
1,000 feet. Stable.
Try not to notice too much of these little tiles shifting and loading here, but for the most part, it looks really good as a sim. You know what we didn't do? Portland, Gate, Charlie, 10. Alaska. Done. Aha. Alright, so this time we are going to disconnect the auto thrust again because I have very little faith in it. It really kind of did not do me nice in that last landing in Los Angeles, so. Autopilot's off.
500.
Roger. We got a pretty stable
500 feet.
thrust setting there, so the auto thrust is off as well because last time I did the landing in Los Angeles, it did not pull the thrust to idle, and it caused a huge bounce by the time I got the auto thrust off. It was just, did it go around? It was terrible. It was a horrible go around too, and all because the auto thrust did not pull to retard. So
200.
Minimums.
continue.
100. 50. 30. 20. 10.
Speed brake up. Reverse is normal.
Alright, we're going a little bit too far here, so let's just go manual braking.
Water brake disarmed. 60 knots.
Roger.
Alaska 1460. Welcome to Portland. Exit Echo 5 and straight into your favorite little ramp place.
Alright, Echo 5, and we're going over to Gate Charlie 10 for Alaska 1460.
Oh, we can do that. Alaska 1460, taxi Charlie 10 via Bravo 5, Tango.
Alright, Charlie 10 via Bravo 5 Tango for Alaska 1460. Thanks. Nice to have ATC again, because the last couple streams we haven't lucked out with much ATC. Alright, and he has already done the whole after landing stuff. Yeah, lights are off. I retracted the speed brakes, and he does it automatically when I retract the speed brakes. He doesn't even wait for my command, so that's fine. That's fine. He's got it all done, and we landed. That was a pretty nice landing. Not terrible.
APU on the buses.
He'll never make it in JFK. Yeah, he sounds like a nice small town controller. That guy sounds very very friendly. I feel like we're gonna go grab a beer as soon as we dock here at the gate. We'll just call it a shift, go grab a beer. He sounds very friendly. I like him. Just so nice to have some ATC. The last couple of legs, although we did have ATC, actually no, we did have ATC on my last stream in Los Angeles. When we landed in Los Angeles, we had ATC. So for our go around and then our vector back around for another approach, it was actually kind of good because, man, the go around really causes your situational awareness to shrink right down, especially if you're not ready for it. And in this airplane, I'm not ready for it. I don't know. I know the basic idea of how to fly the go around in this airplane, but especially kind of single pilot, and I don't necessarily know what the FS2 crew is going to do. I haven't practiced it really. It's awkward to say the least. It did not go well the last time we did when we did that go around in Los Angeles, the last stream. So if you want to see some terrible flying, go watch my last stream. Go watch the last little bit of it there, the last 20 minutes or so when we did the go around Los Angeles. It was not. I was not proud of it. It was not good flying at all. Really kind of just got behind the 8-ball. And I really was not expecting the go-around. The whole go-around was just because the landing ended up being unstable. We ended up bouncing. It was a pretty good high bounce, and it was like, I thought for a second I might be able to recover this, and then the professional in me said, no, just go around and do it again. So that's what I did. And yeah, the go-around did not go well. We busted the altitude quite a bit by the time we got the autopilot back on, the auto thrust back on, everything under control. It's a lot of work to do single pilot, and FS2 crew is not all that supportive. Sometimes you need somebody who's a little bit more supportive and kind of pushing you in the right direction when you're doing a go-around. So I hope one of these Southwest tails that is the static aircraft here is not parked on our gate.
3 minutes.
Alright, there's the 3 minutes. The APU's on the bus. Just have to find which gate is Charlie 10 here as the assigned gate. But there's a lot of airplanes kind of parked here, so it's 18... 16, that might be in that gap there between this Southwest, but I feel like that's Charlie 8, that's Charlie 10. But let's just have a look here. Alright, that's Charlie 14. Oh no, this guy's parked at Charlie 12. Okay, good, Charlie 10 it is. Perfect. Love it, love it. Lights and doors.
Check. Cabin crew, disarm doors and cross-check.
This is Charlie 10. The lights are off. APU's on the bus. Engine anti-ice is off as well, because you don't want to burn the ramp crew. Nothing failed. Sorry, guys. APU's running too. Nothing failed. I tried. I put a random failure in there, but PMDG did not fail anything on us. Alright, so generators are off bus. Seatbelts. Please remember to submit your flight. Thanks. Thanks for that.
The boarding requested.
Shutdown checklist.
Shutdown checklist. Fuel pumps off. Probe off. Hydraulic panel set. Flaps.
0. Up.
Park brake.
Set.
Engine start levers.
Cut off.
Weather radar.
Off.
Off. Shutdown checklist completed.
Alright. He's going to stop listening to me. We are here, guys. Welcome to Portland. That's what training does to you. I like to run it into the highway. Cargo door lock failure when attempting to open it.
Passengers boarding started.
Yeah. I don't think anything failed. I don't think anything failed at the end of the day. I mean, at the end of the day, the random failure, that's 41 failures per hour. It's still statistical. There's a chance, still a chance during the hour that something will not fail at all. It's purely a statistics game. So And that's what I do like. Like I said, I've said that before about the Phoenix, is that you could just insert a failure at random. So I have no active failures, even though I have random failures set up to be... Oh, what happened to that? That's why nothing failed. I thought I put in 41 failures. Anyways, next time we'll fail something, guys. Make sure you like the channel, subscribe to it anyways, because if we get enough viewers in the channel each time, my target is at least 10. And when I get up to 10 viewers at a time in the channel, then we start throwing failures out here. Well, I don't know what she's doing, but so yeah, so make sure you guys follow me here on Twitch, follow me on the YouTube channel as well, and that way you'll know when we're doing a stream ahead of time, hopefully. And yeah, if we get enough people watching the channel, we'll try another failure. I'm sorry that I tried to put a failure in there. I obviously messed something up in the inserting process there, so that's my bad, and sorry about that. But there go our passengers out the door to the bridge that is all the way over there. Really? Really? Suspend your disbelief.
Radio check.
Put the jetway over there where it's supposed to be, honestly. These people are in such a hurry to get off my airplane, they don't even wait for the bridge anymore. They just use their magic to float all the way. Oh, well, what are you going to do? Anyways, that was a good flight, though. Thank you guys for watching, and for all of you that were part of the raid, thank you so much for that. I hope you guys enjoyed it, learned something.
Calling here about 5 by 2.
He sounds like he works at a good pace for
Am I
Portland
good
here.
now?
So yeah, but thank you guys all so much for watching. That was, you know, as much as that was kind of an uneventful stream and nothing much happened, it was still fun. I still had lots of fun doing it. I still had lots of fun talking about stuff, and yeah, glad to get this get another leg of a pilot's life out of the way. So we are now another leg's complete. Let's go ahead and hit submit on that leg. And yeah, our next leg now is back to San Francisco. So as soon as we send this in here,
To North Carolina.
there it is. Thinking about it, give it a couple seconds, reorganize its thoughts. Next leg for the next time we do the stream might be next week. I don't know 100% for sure yet, but we'll see. It's going to be Portland down to San Francisco, and then the long haul after that. The last leg of this season is San Francisco all the way to JFK. That's a long one, and I believe that actually this next leg that we do here is going to be my 100th episode of Pilot's Life, although that may not be totally accurate because I used to split some of them into 2. So it's going to be the 100th episode on my YouTube channel anyways. So can't believe I've done this many legs and this many streams, but it's been going for a while here. So 100 legs more or less streamed. It's crazy. But it's been tons of fun. We found lots of good stuff to talk about, and I'm always happy to answer questions from anybody that jetway failure. I love it, jetway failure. Yeah, always happy to answer questions about it from anybody about the way we operate the sim, about the way we operate the airplane in real life. I don't know the 737 from a bag of hammers, but I do my best to follow the FCOM. PMDG supplied that actual FCOM that the pilots use, and I have done my best to always use it and follow it to the best of my ability. I don't know it as well as I should. If I was type rated in this aircraft in real life, I would study it a lot more in depth and know it a lot better. But I have read through it. I do try to operate as best as I can. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching today, and stay tuned to the channel. If you haven't, please follow it, like and subscribe, and yeah, all that good stuff. All the usual social media pushes you in the right direction. But yeah, if you guys want to see more, make sure you're subscribed. So let me just have a quick look here before I go and just see if there's anybody worth rating. We got still almost 24 people watching here, so let me just have a quick look here and just see if there's any of my favorite channels are online here. If anybody has a suggestion otherwise, none of the channels that I normally follow are currently on.
It's on my left.
So if anybody has a suggestion in the next 20 seconds or so, I can go ahead and rate that channel for some. Otherwise, yeah, I'll pull the plug there. But thank you all for watching, and continue to fly the friendly skies out there on VATSIM, wherever you are, and we will see you guys all on the next stream real soon. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your Monday.